Chapter 5:13. When the person in the pool woke up and stretched out her arms, Long Fei Ye's attention unconsciously focused on the pool. The woman was like a lotus flower emerging from the water as she lazily stood up. As soon as she left the water, she stopped being lazy and nimbly wrapped herself in a bathrobe. Her movements were fast, but Long Fei Ye's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as they locked onto his prey. He was domineering, unbridled, and scrutinized every inch of her body, not letting go of a single detail. Even if it was the most private part of her body, he wouldn't take his eyes off her. His heart wouldn't skip a beat, and his face wouldn't turn red. As it turned out, there were times when His Highness Duke of Qin really wasn't a gentleman. Only the heavens knew how bad he would be once he let go of all his worries. How bad? In short, for the next few nights, Long Fei Yi examined Han Yunqing thoroughly. The shrewd Han Yunqing was completely oblivious to all of this. She only felt that the hot spring she soaked in these past few days had been too comfortable. She even wanted to build an outdoor hot spring in the prince's estate in South Ning City. Who knew what Han Yunqing's reaction would be when she found out the truth many years later? Of course, that was assuming that Long Fei Yi wouldn't tell her. Time flew by, and soon it was the 6th day. In one more day, Mu Ling's challenge to Gu Qi Sha would arrive. Unfortunately, whether it was Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea or Pill Fiend Pharmacy, there was no news of Gu Qi Sha. Could it be that he really didn't plan to show up? Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing had returned to South Ning City the day before. Mu Ling would arrive the next day, but unfortunately, there was still no sign of Gu Qi Sha. If he wanted to accept the challenge, wouldn't he have come to Pill Fiend Pharmacy long ago? After closing, everyone gathered around the tea table to rest and discuss. The first to speak was Su Xiaoyu. Let's make a bet. I bet that ghost won't show up. How rude. There's no way His Highness Pill Fiend won't show up. Zhao Mama immediately reprimanded, our Pill Fiend Pharmacy relies on His Excellency Pill Fiend's reputation. If he doesn't show up this time, not only will he lose face, Pill Fiend Pharmacy will also lose face. Granny Zhao had previously been very disdainful of His Excellency Pill Fiend, but ever since His Excellency Pill Fiend and esteemed Wang Fei had cooperated to open the store, and their group had come over to help, her attitude had completely changed. He was proud of Gu Qi Sha. I'm guessing that she might not come. It's not that she's afraid of losing. She might really look down on Mu Linger. As Madame Hellion spoke, she added, I still hope that he'll come. I've heard of his name for a long time, but until now, I've never seen him in person. Mother, I also hope that Grandpa Pill Fiend will come. I want to learn how to concoct medicines from him. I still have many questions that I want to ask him. Little thought for a moment, then said, Mom, if Grandpa Pill Fiend doesn't come, he'll be laughed at, right? Young Master His Excellency Pill Fiend wouldn't mind how the world views him. I heard that he always does things his own way. Not everyone can have that kind of unfettered temperament that disdains the world. Chen Xiang's face was filled with admiration. It's hard to say whether he'll come or not. That kind of person's personality is hard to fathom. Bailey Mingxiang also spoke up, then looked at Gu Beiyue. Dr. Gu, what do you think? After Gu Beiyue moved into Pill Fiend Pharmacy, his title as an imperial physician was officially removed. Everyone called him Divine Dr. Gu, but he would always take the trouble to correct it to Dr. Gu. After a few days, everyone had gotten used to it. Gu Beiyue didn't directly answer Bailey Mingxiang. Instead, he looked at Long Fei Yi. Your Highness, what do you think? After all, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing were the most reticent people in the room. The fact that Gu Qi Sha was Gu Beiyue was only known to the two of them, as well as a few of Long Fei Ye's subordinates. At this moment, everyone was in a heated discussion. None of them were aware of the situation. Long Fei Yi was expressionless. What do you think? This humble one thinks that Lord Pill Fiend won't come. Gu Beiyue finally gave his opinion. Why? Long Fei Yi asked. You don't think much of Miss Mu? Gu Beiyue gave a very neutral answer. It was as if he hadn't said anything at all. Long Fei Yi couldn't be bothered to look at him again. Instead, he smiled faintly, but it was a meaningful smile. Long Fei Yi was sitting with such a large group of people because he wanted to accompany Han Yunqing. However, he didn't like the fact that everyone was talking at once. Just as he was about to leave, Gu Beiyue asked Han Yunqing as if on purpose, "Esteemed Wang Fei, what do you think?" Han Yunqing lazily stood up and stretched. We'll find out tomorrow. Let's disperse and go to bed early. Go to bed early? Only the heavens knew how many people were tossing and turning in bed until dawn. Mu Ling'er was definitely suffering from insomnia. At this moment, the bright moon was hanging high in the sky. She was sitting on a swing in the courtyard next to Pilfiend Pharmacy, swaying back and forth. Her mind had long since wandered off. She had been living in this courtyard since the day she issued the challenge. The Mu family and even those from Medicine City's Council of Elders clearly knew that she was here, but they couldn't approach. There was no doubt that Han Yunqing had sent hidden guards to guard her. Han Yunqing didn't say anything, so she pretended not to know. However, she tacitly accepted it. With her personality, how could she casually accept help? However, ever since Han Yunqing told her that secret, she didn't have much of a temper. As she swayed back and forth, Mu Ling'er suddenly stopped. She seemed to have thought of something and a sweet smile appeared on her face. Her smile filled the air with the smell of honey. When the sky was still hazy, Zhao Mama came out of the side door to buy groceries. She was surprised to see a woman in thin clothes standing at the door. It was none other than Mu Ling'er. Zhao Mama jumped in fright. Wasn't she a little too early? In reality, Mu Ling'er had been sitting at the door for 2 hours and had only just stood up. She was excited. When she saw Zhao Mama come out, Mu Ling'er, who had always been displeased with Han Yunqing's people, actually smiled at her in a very friendly manner. Zhao Mama couldn't bring herself to smile back. After looking at her for a while, she immediately ran into the back courtyard to look for Gu Beiyue. Dr. Gu. Dr. Gu, that girl from the Mu family isn't crazy, is she? What's going on? Gu Beiyue was quite nervous. She's already standing at the door, yet she's still smiling at me, Zhao Mama said seriously. Gu Beiyue was surprised at first, but then he smiled. That's normal. She's nervous for something this big. Only then did Zhao Mama relax and leave through the back door. By the time Zhao Mama returned, Pilfiend Pharmacy was already open for business. There was already a sea of people at the entrance, and it was bustling with noise. The scene was much larger than it had been during the opening ceremony. Mu Ling'er was still standing at the same spot at the front door of Pilfiend Pharmacy. She had only set a date, but not a specific time, so she didn't know whether Gu Qisha would be coming or not. The entire place was bustling with noise and excitement, and everyone was talking about this matter. Not long after, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing also arrived. However, they didn't show themselves. Instead, they sat in the garden behind Pilfiend Pharmacy and waited. Unexpectedly, they waited until noon, but Gu Qisha still hadn't shown up. Is Gu Qisha inside or not? Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei is inside, right? Give us a definite answer. Don't make everyone wait. Is Gu Qisha coming or not? He won't really not come, right? There were all sorts of questions and even quite a few goads. Gu Qisha, come out. Is a little girl enough to scare you to this extent? Don't you have any guts? Your Excellency Pilfiend, that little girl has been standing there for half a day. Even if you look down on her, you should at least give her some face. There were even some who took the opportunity to cause trouble. Are you messing with us? If you don't come out now, I'll never come to Pilfiend Pharmacy again. What's so great about him? He thinks too highly of himself. Ha, I think this is just a publicity stunt. He's really putting a lot of thought into this. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing naturally ignored these voices. However, it wasn't long before Bailey Mingxiang arrived. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, the head of Medicine City's Medical Materials Association has arrived. Su Xiaoyu immediately reported, Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, Medical City's Council of Elders has sent a few disciples to pay their respects. Very soon, Chu Shifeng arrived as well. Your Highness, that fellow Ouyang Ning Nua is here too. He's sitting right here in the shop. Long Fei Ye's lips rose into a cold smile, but he didn't speak. Han Yunqing seemed to grow impatient as she waved a hand. If they're not going to fill up their prescriptions, then let them be. They can do whatever they want. Logically speaking, for such a sensational challenge, Han Yunqing should have invited the heavyweights of the medical community to preside over it as judges and referees. Then she'd invite a few related guests to watch the match. No matter how the process went, she could at least use this chance to get to know a few important figures and expand her network. But Han Yunqing had been spending the past few days with Long Fei Yi on vacation and hadn't given it much thought. Now that important figures and powers had come knocking on her door, she wasn't even entertaining them. Fine, she really wasn't in a good mood right now. Gu, are you coming or not? She waited all afternoon. But Pill Fiend Pharmacy didn't say anything, nor did Gu Qi Sha show his face. Gradually, the restless crowd quieted down. More and more people arrived, but not a single one of them left. After all, it wasn't dark yet. After all, Mu Ling had been standing there all day without saying a word. As the sun set in the west, Han Yunqing gazed at the rosy clouds with a serious expression. Gu, do you have the guts to come or not? Actually, she wasn't confident at all. With Gu's free and easy personality, how could he care about what the world thought of him? How could he be provoked so easily? If he was happy, even if the whole world despised and condemned him, he would still do as he pleased. If he was unhappy, he would despise the whole world. She had teamed up with that silly girl Mu Ling, to set up this trap just to give Gu a way out and an excuse to return to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Gu, weren't you unable to chase him away before? This time, do you dare? Are you willing to write off all our grudges and take control of Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Seeing Han Yunqing's disappointed expression, Long Fei Yi sneered, even if this prince wants to repay him for saving my life, he has to have the guts to come and claim it. Han Yunqing still remembered Long Fei Ye's angry words. However, she was certain that Long Fei Yi didn't owe Gu anything, so this was a chance to settle all their grudges. Unfortunately, he wasn't coming. Long Fei Yi had secretly sent people to search for Gu, but they couldn't even find a trace of him. He'd repay Gu Qishao's kindness to Han Yunqing, but he'd also clear up the grudges between them. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to come. As the sun set, the sky gradually darkened. Time was running out. Gu, where are you? Chapter 5:14. The sky gradually darkened and the lanterns were about to be lit, but Gu Qisha still hadn't shown up. Due to the incitement of the troublemakers, Pill Fiend Pharmacy's entrance was currently filled with a boiling cauldron of voices. All sorts of urging, accusations, and questions rose and fell, making it seem like Pill Fiend Pharmacy owed them something. Finally, Han Yunqing walked out. As soon as Han Yunqing appeared, the voices grew even louder. Esteemed Wang Fei, is Gu Qisha coming or not? Give us a definite answer. Gu Qisha is still half a master of Pill Fiend Pharmacy, right? Hehe, esteemed Wang Fei, why don't you admit defeat in Gu Qisha's place so everyone can disperse? We've been waiting for an entire day. These people really wanted to see the world burn. Han Yunqing didn't ask them to watch the battle, nor did she ask for their tickets, so what were they complaining about? Han Yunqing was already in a bad mood. Just as she was about to retort, Long Fei Yi walked out. He stood behind her with an icy expression, causing the clamoring crowd to shut up. They didn't dare to make a fuss. As expected, His Highness Duke of Qin's aura was different. However, these people quickly pointed their spears at Mu Ling. Don't overestimate yourself, Gu Qi Sha won't come. Ha, he doesn't care about you at all. Why does the 9th Miss of the Mu clan have to make herself look like a clown? If it were me, I would have left long ago. Don't make a fool of yourself here. Little girl, say something. Don't tell me you've gone silly from waiting. Hee hee. Of course she's stupid. If she wasn't, why would she challenge Gu Qi Sha? Isn't that right, everyone? Amidst the roaring laughter, Mu Ling lowered her eyes and remained motionless. Her petite and slender figure seemed especially lonely in the crowd of over 100 people. However, her straight back exuded an unyielding stubbornness that couldn't be ignored. She waited. Everyone here had only waited for a day, but she had waited for many years. What was there to be stupid about? She was willing to be stupid. Amidst the commotion, she sneaked a glance at Han Yunqing and winked mischievously, as if hinting for her not to lower herself to the same level as these people. If they didn't know the truth, they would be the most foolish ones. Han Yunqing was originally upset, but when she saw this, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. She didn't know what to say to this girl. She felt distressed and helpless. At this moment, Han Yunqing felt a little regretful. She should not have set this trap. If Gu really didn't come, what would Mu Linger do? Finally, the sky darkened and the lanterns were lit. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was filled with glorious lights. Although they did not set a time, Gu Qi Sha did not show up even though the sky was already dark. Let's go back, what a bummer. I've waited all day in vain. Ha, Gu Qi Sha is such a coward. You don't even dare to show your face. Let's go, let's go. Gu Qi Sha is afraid of even a little girl. I think his reputation is undeserved. The onlookers began to leave one after another, and it didn't take long for half of them to leave. Han Yunqing suddenly felt as though the concert had ended and the crowd had dispersed. Even though she didn't want to believe it, the truth was the truth. Gu Qi Sha hadn't come. A few middle-aged women walked up to Mu Linger and patted her on the shoulder, trying to persuade her out of goodwill. Little girl, let's go back. You've been standing all day, your body will collapse from exhaustion. Silly girl, it's already dark. Lord Pill Fiend won't come. Wake up. Mu Linger lowered her head and didn't move or make a sound. The women sighed helplessly and left as well. Mu Linger was surrounded by 100 people, but now that everyone was leaving, she seemed even more lonely. Her thin and small figure stood there as straight as a ramrod, as if she was waiting for the heavens to pass away and for the world to change. Han Yunqing's heart ached when she saw this. Just as she was about to walk over, a strange and terrifying laughter rang out. A black shadow suddenly descended from the sky like a large bat. Ha ha ha. Jie. Jie, the laughter seemed to come from the depths of hell. At times, it was strange and sinister, at other times, it was filled with hidden bitterness, and at other times, it was unbridled and unbridled. The sound grew louder and louder until it filled everyone's ears and lingered in their ears. This sound. Everyone was shocked. Those who had left all turned around to look, and there were even a few who quickly turned back. At the entrance of Pill Fiend Pharmacy stood a tall black shadow directly opposite Mu Linger. Gu Qi Sha had come. Mu Linger finally raised her head and almost cried out in surprise. Fortunately, Han Yunqing gave her a look in time to remind her to calm down. Han Yunqing secretly sighed in relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Long Fei stared coldly at Gu Qi Sha as his lips curved into an unreadable smile. Only the heavens knew what he was planning, but there was nothing he could do right now. Gu Qi Sha had to fight Mu Linger. In just a short while, Pill Fiend Pharmacy's entrance was once again surrounded by onlookers. This time, the entire place was silent and no one dared to make a sound. This was because at this moment, Gu Qi Sha was arrogantly sizing up Mu Linger. Little girl, how do you plan to challenge this daddy? he asked disdainfully. Mu Linger must have been prepared for this, so she quickly replied, I want to compete with you in the efficacy of my pills. As soon as these words came out, not to mention the experts present, even the laymen who were here to watch the show burst into laughter. Had this little girl really thought it through? Although there was a great disparity in strength, this little girl should at least be a little more serious. She should have found something unorthodox to compete with, at least she wouldn't lose too badly. Moreover, everyone knew that the disparity in strength was too great, so they had come to watch the show. First, they wanted to see Pill Fiend's glory with their own eyes, and second, they wanted to see Mu Linger show off some of her skills. Who would have thought that she would actually want to compete in efficacy? To compete in efficacy, it was nothing more than making the same type of medicine on the spot and then competing to see whose medicine had the better efficacy. This was the most basic skill of an alchemist, and at the same time, it was also the biggest standard to distinguish an alchemist's abilities. For medicine in the form of pills, the same type of medicine and the same formula would naturally have the same basic medicinal effect. However, minute differences in dosage, water usage, temperature, strength, timing, and other such details would cause differences in the efficacy of the medicine. For example, the speed at which the medicine took effect, the magnitude of the side effects, and so on. These aspects could not be learned, and could only be learned through experience. How could Mu Linger compete with Gu Qi Sha? What was there to watch? What was there to be suspense about? Little girl, are you sure? Gu Qi Sha asked playfully. Very sure. Mu Linger was very certain. I'll decide on the method of the competition, and I'll ask Pill Fiend to provide the formula so that it won't be unfair. Gu Qi Sha laughed heartily. Unfair, haha. Yes, since we're going to compete, it has to be fair. I'll ask Pill Fiend to provide the formula. Mu Linger was very serious. Seeing her determined attitude, the crowd began to whisper amongst themselves. Is this little girl really that confident? She doesn't look like a fool, she might have come prepared. She's still a member of the Mu family, after all. If she hadn't come prepared, would that old schemer Muing Dong have allowed her to embarrass herself here? After all, they had been waiting for so long, so everyone was looking forward to the competition. Even if Mu Linger had some kind of ultimate move, they still wanted to see the old and young prodigy's pharmaceutical skills. Gu Qi Sha looked at Han Yunqing. Little poison, give me the formula. Han Yunqing thought for a moment, then took out a long formula. I'll take this, the 100 purging pill. As soon as she said this, the crowd burst into laughter. The 100 purging pill was a laxative. Because it could expel the toxins in the body in one go and was made from a mixture of 100 different medicinal herbs, it was named the 100 purging pill. Although it was a laxative, it was the highest grade of laxatives and also the most difficult to concoct. Han Yunqing was still very biased towards Mu Linger. The more complicated the concoction process was, the more opportunities Mu Linger would have to find. If only 2 medicinal herbs were needed, then it would be very difficult for Mu Linger to increase the efficacy of the medicine. After all, no one knew what Han Yunqing and Mu Linger were scheming, so everyone felt that Han Yunqing was being very fair. As for Gu Qi Sha, he was used to being bullied by Han Yunqing, so he did not think much of it. He only wanted to end this competition as soon as possible. Since he had come, he had decided to settle the score with Long Fei Yi. He had no time to mess around with that damned girl Mu Linger. What are you laughing at? Who wants to try it? Step forward. Han Yunqing shouted. Needless to say, a group of people immediately stepped forward. Regardless of whether it was Mu Linger or Gu Qi Sha's concoctions, they were all highly sought after. What's more, they could eat it for free. Gu Qi Sha and Mu Linger each chose a test subject for the other. One had to know that different constitutions and health conditions had a great impact on the efficacy of the medicine. In a sense, their competition began with the selection of test subjects. Everyone watched quietly. Many of the experts were especially attentive because they did not want to miss this opportunity to learn. But who would have thought that Gu Qixia would randomly choose a test subject? Mu Ling'er was even more casual than him and chose the person closest to her. So fast. It was possible for Gu Qixia to see through a person's constitution at a glance, but what about Mu Ling'er? Not to mention the others, even Xie Dei, the head of Medicine City's Council of Elders, was shocked. Mu Ling'er had left Medicine City for more than a year, so how could she have improved so much? It was truly inconceivable. Presumably, the following process would be very exciting. Who knows, this girl might even bring a pleasant surprise to everyone. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's workers quickly set up the refining table and provided 2 sets of the same ingredients and various utensils according to the prescription. Mu Ling'er and Gu Qixia both stood in front of the refining table. The crowd was tense as the competition was about to begin. Just as the two were about to begin, Han Yunqing suddenly shouted, "Wait!" Gu Qixia wasn't impatient, but rather helpless. Mu Ling'er's eyes flashed with craftiness, but she pretended to be arrogant. "Qin Wangfei, if you have any other requests, please speak. Since it's a challenge, there must be a winner and a loser." "What if you lose?" Han Yunqing asked loudly. "What if I win?" Mu Ling'er retorted. The two of them were only putting on a show for Gu Qixia to see. Gu Qixia had long known about the challenge agreement. As he saw it, Han Yunqing had been goading him on purpose all along so she could take Mu Ling'er into Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Thus, Gu Qixia wasn't too surprised by Mu Ling'er's arrogant attitude. This girl couldn't withstand provocation, so this kind of reaction was normal. But all of the spectators were stunned. Seeing Mu Ling'er's attitude, they felt that this girl wasn't simple at all. She'd always been prepared just in case. If you win, you can name any conditions you want. If you lose, you can only serve Pill Fiend Pharmacy from now on. Han Yunqing said seriously. "All right." Mu Ling'er coolly agreed. With this agreement. Chapter 5:15. Mu Ling'er's agreement was met with a chorus of disbelief. Such harsh conditions were equivalent to betraying the Mu clan and Medicine City. This girl actually agreed. Even those who didn't like Mu Ling'er were shaken. Perhaps there would be a miracle in the medical world tonight and Mu Ling'er would win against Gu Qixia. Hidden in the crowd, Mu Yingdong was so angry that the veins on his forehead were bulging. He didn't know what Mu Ling'er was up to. However, he smelled a strong conspiracy. Han Yunqing was trying to steal from the Mu clan. Damn it! Although he was angry, Mu Yingdong remained indifferent. He glanced at President Xie, who was standing in front of him. A glint flashed in his eyes, but he suppressed all his anger. Then, "Please begin," Han Yunqing said with a smile. In an instant, more than 100 pairs of eyes were focused on them. Everyone was nervous and expectant. The concoction was about to begin. Gu Qixia slowly revealed his bony hands while Mu Ling'er leisurely rolled up her sleeves. Silence fell upon the scene as the atmosphere grew tense. Everyone's attention was on the pair's every move. However, Mu Ling'er's hands suddenly moved and swept across the ingredients on the table. She placed them into a pestle and mortar and then plucked them like she was playing a zither. Her other hand covered the opening of the pestle and mortar. Not long after, she removed a small black pill from the pestle and mortar. However, Gu Qixia's speed was even faster than hers. He didn't even use a pestle or a mortar. In any case, no one present could see clearly what had happened. All they knew was that his terrifying hands had grabbed the medicinal ingredients, and with a flick of his wrist, the medicinal ingredients had disappeared and turned into a few small pills. It only took a few moments for the pills to come out. That's it. After all, everyone had waited for an entire day and it was only a few moments. Moreover, they didn't even see anything clearly. What a scam. They could only comfort themselves that they had seen an expert concoction before. Although everyone was disappointed, they were still nervous. After all, the process wasn't important. The result was the most important. Mu Linger was very likely to bring a surprise. Han Yunqing personally took the 2 pills and held them up high for everyone to see. These 2 pills, regardless of their size or color, were exactly the same. There was no difference between them and the pills on the market. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the medicine testers took the medicine at the same time. The air was filled with tension, and the whole place was so quiet that even the sound of the medicine testers swallowing could be heard. They had all taken it. Gu Qisha's medicine tester's eyes widened in shock as his body trembled. He immediately clutched his stomach and ran towards the toilet at a speed that could be described as disappearing in the blink of an eye. This, the 100 purging pill, was a laxative, but it wasn't a simple laxative. It wouldn't take effect so quickly. Even if one ate 300 purging pills on the market at once, it would still take about 2 hours to take effect. Of course, no one cared about that at this moment. Because, the person who took Mu Linger's medicine had yet to react. Therefore, Mu Linger sighed softly and calmly said, "Hee, Your Excellency Pill Fiend, I've lost." Han Yunqing snickered at the side, but Gu Qisha didn't react at all. All the spectators were dumbfounded. That's it? Is it going to end just like that? Mu Linger was so arrogant and confident, but she lost just like that? Why are you still so calm? It's one thing to not see the process of making the medicine, but the result of the competition. There's no suspense at all. Mu Linger, are you trying to trick us? We've been waiting for an entire day, and we've all been looking forward to it. The result left all the spectators speechless. Gu Qisha gave Long Fei Yi a meaningful look, then finally walked into Pill Fiend Pharmacy. The instigators, Han Yunqing and Mu Linger, looked at each other, their eyes full of smiles. Han Yunqing said seriously, "Mu Linger, you've lost. You'd better keep your word." As Mu Linger watched Gu Qisha's back, her heart was filled with joy. Just as she was about to speak, a harsh voice stopped her. "Mu Linger, hurry up and follow the old man back to Medicine City to suffer." Mu Linger was stunned. Turning around, she saw a man in his 60s with a head full of white hair and a stern face. This person was the head of Medicine City's Council of Elders, Xie Dei. He was so fierce that she almost thought it was her father. Who would have thought it was this old man? While Mu Linger was still in shock, Han Yunqing immediately sensed danger. Muing Dong hadn't made a single move despite the commotion, but now head Xie had personally appeared. Medicine City had its own council of elders, and its members were all highly respected pharmacists in the city. Most of them were from the 3 great clans, but there were also people from other smaller clans. The Council of Elders had the authority to handle many internal affairs of Medicine City, and they could also represent the city to outsiders. Due to the incident at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, Mu Linger had been constantly troubled by the Council of Elders. Muing Dong had been unable to withstand the pressure from the Council of Elders, and in the end, he had chosen to imprison Mu Linger. Although the Mu family had quite a bit of influence in the Elders Guild, they still didn't have the absolute advantage. Moreover, it was rare for the Mu family to be exposed, so the other powers in the Elders Guild would definitely collude to bite them and not let them go. Head Xie's words of suffering were undoubtedly still harping on Mu Linger's actions at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. Head Xie walked out from the crowd, followed by more than 10 expert guards from different directions. They surrounded Mu Linger. "Girl, you've already been on the run for a year. Go back with the old man and suffer," Head Xie coldly said. Mu Linger subconsciously retreated, but Han Yunqing immediately stepped in front of her to protect her. Long Fei Yi didn't move, but he coldly watched. Gu Qisha, who had just entered the door, slowly turned around. A bet is a bet. From this moment on, Mu Linger is a member of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Do you want her to go back on her word, Head Xie? Han Yunqing asked. Qin Wangfei, this girl is a sinner to begin with. Medicine City has put her on the wanted list for a year, so any promises she made to you are null and void. Head Xie's tone was unyielding, leaving no room for negotiation. Qin Wangfei, old man requested an audience before the competition began, but you refused to see the old man. Now, in front of everyone, don't blame the old man for not giving Pill Fiend Pharmacy any face. Hypocrite. I didn't see him before, but didn't Han Yunqing come out after that? If Head Xie truly wanted to negotiate and stop the competition, he would have had plenty of opportunities to talk to Han Yunqing before Gu Qisha arrived. But he just had to wait until this critical moment. Now that the situation had escalated to this point, everyone was paying close attention to the situation. Mu Linger had lost, so the news of her promise to stay in Pill Fiend Pharmacy would soon spread. Head Xie's decision to talk about her so-called freedom in front of everyone was undoubtedly a show of strength to Pill Fiend Pharmacy, leaving Han Yunqing with no chance to salvage the situation. Moreover, he wanted to use the momentum of the challenge to blow the matter up even more. None of the onlookers expected things to turn out this way, so they quickly broke out into discussion. Cold laughter filled Mu Yingdong's face as he hid in the crowd. He was naturally the one behind Head Xie's personal appearance. He wouldn't show himself, so he waited to see what Han Yunqing would say to Head Xie. He wanted to see how Han Yunqing would interfere with Medicine City's internal affairs in front of so many people, especially those from the same circle. If he personally came out, then this matter would only be the Mu clan's internal affairs. But if Head Xie came out, then this matter would be elevated to the level of Medicine City's internal affairs. In any case, the agreement had already been signed, and the evidence from the black market was already in her hands. She wasn't afraid of Han Yunqing revealing anything. If Han Yunqing did, then her own reputation would be ruined as well. Mu Yingdong's smug words were exactly what Han Yunqing was considering at this moment. At this moment, whether or not Mu Linger could work for Pill Fiend Pharmacy was secondary. Han Yunqing knew very well that Mu Yingdong's decision to not come out and instead had Head Xie come out was the same as cutting off all means of retreat. He would rather lose his daughter than benefit Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Just think about it. Mu Linger was a pharmaceutical genius who was envied and hated by countless people in Medicine City. If she fell into the hands of the Council of Elders, would she have a good ending? Mu Linger knew this better than anyone else. Han Yunqing, I'm begging you. Save me. She whispered, her voice trembling slightly. If it was before, then she wouldn't have cared. At worst, she would die. But now that she knew the secret, she was afraid. She wanted to live. She wanted to live happily in Pill Fiend Pharmacy for the rest of her life. Han Yunqing also wanted to save her, but Head Xie's words just now were reasonable. In front of so many people, it was very difficult for her to protect Mu Linger. If she forcefully interfered, then she would be criticized by the world and tarnish Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation. Moreover, if she openly went against Head Xie, then she would be publicly making an enemy of Medicine City. Many things would be difficult in the future. Seeing Han Yunqing's silence, Head Xie said coldly, "It seems that Qin Wangfei is a sensible person. Someone come, take Mu Linger away." Wait. Han Yunqing finally spoke up. Head Xie, during Empress Dowager Li's birthday banquet, Mu Linger made a mistake because we are close friends. This girl has been on the run for more than a year and has suffered a lot. Why don't you give this princess consort some face today and give her a light punishment? As for her promise to Pill Fiend Pharmacy today, we can forget about it. Han Yunqing was very courteous as she made a concession. What do you think about this? As long as Mu Linger was safe, she could think of a way to deal with Pill Fiend Pharmacy later. However, Head Xie didn't budge an inch. It's rare for esteemed Wangfei to be so reasonable. This girl doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and showed off her slight skill in front of an expert, affecting Pill Fiend Pharmacy's business. Old man will apologize to esteemed Wangfei on behalf of Medicine City. As for the punishment, Medicine City has its own rules, so there's no need for esteemed Wangfei to worry about it. As he spoke, he gave a look to the guards, who immediately stepped forward to arrest Mu Linger. At that moment, Long Fei Yi and Gu Qi walked over at the same time. Long Fei Yi asked, "How does Head Xia plan to apologize on behalf of Medicine City?" Gu Qi coldly replied, "Does Head Xia mean that you plan to apologize to this old man? You set up such a grand scheme and lost to this old man, yet you still refused to honor your promise. Medicine City, don't be so shameless." It was rare for Long Fei Yi and Gu Qi to be on the same side. However, Head Xia didn't hold back and said. Chapter 5:16. Even when facing Long Fei Yi and Gu Qi, Head Elder Xia didn't hold back. He said, "Your Highness Duke of Qin, Mu Linger has been wanted by the Council of Elders for a long time. You should be aware of this. Today's challenge is her personal matter and has nothing to do with Medicine City. Old man is only apologizing on behalf of Medicine City because of you. If Pill Fiend Pharmacy insists on keeping her, then don't blame Medicine City for not giving your highness face." These words were directed at Long Fei Yi. As for Gu Qi, Head Elder Xia didn't even look at him. This made Gu Qi extremely displeased. His figure blurred as he suddenly appeared in front of Elder Xia. He was practically right in front of Elder Xia's face as he coldly asked, "Do you believe that I won't destroy your entire Medicine City?" Head Elder Xia lived up to his reputation as the leader of the Council of Elders. His expression didn't change as he coldly replied, "If Pill Fiend Pharmacy wants to become enemies with Medicine City over this matter, then Medicine City will accompany you to the end. I'll kill you right now." Gu Qi immediately raised his bony claws. Long Fei Yi furrowed his brows and looked towards Han Yunqing, as if asking for Han Yunqing's opinion. Han Yunqing knew that the most logical thing to do right now was to stop Gu Qi, but she hesitated. She wanted to slap this old thing to death even more than Gu Qi did. Head Elder Xia didn't move even though Gu Qi was about to make a move. It was as if he had steeled his heart to believe that Gu Qi wouldn't actually attack. However, Gu Qi didn't hold back. His palm came crashing down on Head Elder Xia. At this critical moment, Mu Linger suddenly rushed out from behind Han Yunqing and pushed Gu Qi away. "No. I'll go back with him." Gu Qi's palm hit nothing but air. Head Elder Xia finally realized that Gu Qi wasn't just bluffing. His heart was filled with lingering fear, but he didn't show it. Despite his fear, Mu Linger's compromise only made Head Elder Xia even more domineering. "Men, take her away." "No need, I can walk on my own." Mu Linger was a crybaby. At this moment, she really wanted to cry, but she held it in. Gu Qi's tall figure was enough to strengthen her resolve. "Qi brother, we'll meet again in the end." She was already sobbing silently in her heart. She really wanted to hide behind him for a while longer, but she still gritted her teeth and resolutely strode out from behind him. "Goodbye, Qi brother. Ling will miss you every day. Han Yunqing, goodbye. Actually, I've always wanted to call you sister." "Stinky girl, you want to leave after losing to me? Get the hell back here." Gu Qi shouted angrily. Mu Linger turned to look at Han Yunqing. Clearly, she wanted Han Yunqing to persuade her. The secret that Gu Qi was Qi brother was revealed to her by Han Yunqing. She knew that as long as Han Yunqing spoke, Qi brother's anger would be extinguished instantly. Han Yunqing was the most rational woman in the room. She knew the severity of the situation. As expected, Gu Qi also turned to look at Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing didn't say anything. She really did know the severity of the situation. Mu Linger was in the wrong first, and Pill Fiend Pharmacy couldn't claim any justice. This Head Elder Xia had clearly come prepared. If Gu Qi attacked in front of everyone, Pill Fiend Pharmacy would undoubtedly be attacked by the entire medical community. Long Fei Yi had enough power for her to rely on, but there were too many people who wanted to take advantage of the situation to hit her while she was down. She could only blame herself for trying so hard to help Mu Ling'er hide it from Gu, but she had neglected Medical City's Elder Council. Han Yunqing was still silent when Long Fei Yi, the calmest of them all, coldly said, "Guards." As soon as he spoke, more than 20 black-robed hidden guards appeared and surrounded the crowd. He didn't waste any time and raised his eyebrows coldly at Head Elder Xie. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. He wouldn't back down on this matter. Han Yunqing was overjoyed. Since Long Fei Yi had shown such an attitude, she had no choice but to throw caution to the wind. Unexpectedly, many of Medicine City's guards stepped out from the crowd and surrounded them. Both sides faced each other with swords drawn. The atmosphere was tense. At that moment, a familiar voice called out from the crowd, "Everyone, stop." An old man walked out. He wore a gray robe, had a white beard, and had a benevolent face. Seeing this, Gu Qisha let out a sinister laugh. Head Elder Xia was very surprised. He quickly walked over and bowed politely, "Third Elder Shen, you've also come." Only then did everyone realize that this old man was the third elder of Medical City's Elder Council, Shen Jueming. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation was truly impressive. Even Medical City's third elder had come. Medical City and Medicine City were like one family, but Medical City's strength wasn't something that Medicine City could compare to. Shen Jueming's status as the third elder of Medical City's Elder Council was enough to make Head Elder Xia Dei, show some respect. His polite greeting clearly showed his superiority. Third Elder Shen nodded at him, then turned to Gu Qisha and said, "Gu Qisha, this old man thought that you had already turned over a new leaf when you were able to open a pharmacy and sell medicine. I didn't think that you would still be so impudent and ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. If you dare touch a single hair on Head Elder Xia's head, Medical City won't let you off." Ha ha ha. Gu Qisha threw his head back and laughed with disdain. He extended his terrifying claws towards Third Elder Shen and said, "I'll accompany you to the end." What? Medical City and Medicine City are joining forces to bully a small pharmacy? Han Yunqing's voice was cold. She appeared angry, but a trace of amusement flashed through her eyes. "Qin Wangfei, you've misunderstood. Old man only taught a lesson to a traitorous disciple of Medical City. Pill Fiend Pharmacy sells medicine and does good deeds. Old man admires you." Third Elder Shen stroked his beard and continued, "There's no need to ruin Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation because of a little girl. If the two of you don't mind, then listen to old man's words. Let's each take a step back and turn a big problem into a small one." At his words, Head Elder Xia quickly interjected, "May Third Elder Shen preside over justice." Medicine City wasn't afraid of trouble, especially since they had Medical City as their backing. Han Yunqing had arrogantly made a bet with Third Elder Shen because of the Crown Prince's illness. She had long offended Third Elder Shen. How could Third Elder Shen give her a good time to eat? Since Third Elder Shen says so, then this Wang Fei will give Medical City some face. Han Yunqing gave in as well. She shot Gu Qisha a look, who unhappily withdrew despite his reluctance. Third Elder Shen thought it over before he said, "Mu Ling'er provoked us first and was defeated later. Since we've spoken first, then it's reasonable to." Before he could finish, Head Elder Xia grew anxious. Third Elder Shen, Mu Ling'er was all ready. Third Elder Shen gave him an unhappy look. Old man hasn't finished speaking yet. If Head Elder Xia is dissatisfied, then old man can just ignore it. I don't dare. Head Elder Xia was resentful. Han Yunqing saw this and knew that this old thing was very difficult to deal with. Third Elder Shen continued, "Since we've spoken first, then Mu Ling'er should fulfill her promise. However, she's not a free woman to begin with, so we can forget about her loyalty to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. As old man sees it, we'll punish her to come to Pill Fiend Pharmacy every 3 months to make up a prescription as an apology." As for Medicine City's internal affairs, esteemed Wang Fei shouldn't get involved. This was a reasonable arrangement. Everyone present gave their approval, but head elder Xia wasn't satisfied. Make up a prescription every 3 months. What's the difference between that and being loyal to Pill Fiend Pharmacy? With Mu Ling's skills, she could only make up a single new prescription in 3 months, or even improve a single one. An ordinary pharmacist might not be able to make a single prescription in 2 or 3 years. Third Elder Shen's expression darkened as he angrily said, "It's your Medicine City's fault for not teaching properly in the first place. The entire world knows about the challenge. If head elder Xia only wants to apologize, then old man can't do anything about it." As he spoke, he bowed to Han Yunqing and prepared to leave. Head elder Xia hastily stopped him. "Third Elder Shen, please wait. We'll do as you say." He originally thought that Shen Jueming would use this opportunity to scheme against Han Yunqing, but who would have thought that Shen Jueming would be so fair? If he had allowed Han Yunqing to make the first move, then Han Yunqing would have made a grave mistake. But now that Third Elder Shen had intervened, if he didn't give in, then it would have made him seem unreasonable and lose his bearing. But none of this was important. Medicine City would lose Medical City's support on this matter. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. "Qin Wangfei, what do you think?" As Third Elder Shen spoke, he gave Han Yunqing a meaningful look. Han Yunqing was well aware of the severity of this matter and the severity of the consequences. Since Third Elder Shen had already intervened, she had no choice but to agree even if she didn't want to. If she allowed Mu Linger to visit once every 3 months, then they would at least know how Mu Linger was doing in Medicine City. Medicine City's Council of Elders wouldn't take advantage of this opportunity to take her life. After some hesitation, Han Yunqing finally nodded. "Fine. Out of respect for Third Elder Shen, I won't pursue this matter any further." Head Elder Xia snorted disdainfully at her words and coldly ordered, "Men, take her away." Mu Linger turned to look at Gu Qi Sha and loudly said, "Gu Qi Sha, wait for me, all right?" As soon as the people from Medical City arrived, Gu Qi Sha's heart was filled with nothing but hatred. He didn't even look at Mu Linger as he casually replied, "Why should I wait for you? Wait for me to come back. One day, I'll definitely defeat you." Mu Linger said earnestly. It wasn't clear if Gu Qi Sha heard her clearly, but he snorted disdainfully and ignored her. Mu Linger smiled helplessly. Just as she was about to leave, Han Yunqing shouted, "Pill Fiend Pharmacy welcomes you to challenge us again at any time." "Definitely." Mu Linger replied domineeringly. She didn't allow the guards to take her away and strode away without saying a word. Everyone was in awe of this little girl's unyielding character. Gu Qi Sha, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes and stared at Third Elder Shen. Mu Linger's figure had already disappeared into the crowd, but he was still staring at her. Now that Mu Linger had left, the matter was over. Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi didn't even bother to look at head elder Xia as they turned around and entered the store. Sooner or later, they would seek revenge from head elder Xia for what happened today. Han Yunqing's only wish was that Mu Linger would be a little smarter and not try to show off and suffer. Head Elder Xia wanted to invite Third Elder Shen for a drink, but Third Elder Shen unexpectedly declined and entered Pill Fiend Pharmacy instead. Head Elder Xia could only drop the subject and leave. Once the parties involved had left, the onlookers also dispersed. Muing Dong was chatting with a tall and imposing masked man. Ouyang Ning Noa followed them from a distance and muttered to himself suspiciously, "Jun Yixie." Regardless of who this masked man was, Muing Dong must have some ulterior motive for allowing the Mu clan's genius to fall into head Elder Xie's hands. At this moment, inside Pill Fiend Pharmacy, Third Elder Shen was drinking tea and discussing business with Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi. Outsiders all assumed that Third Elder Shen and Han Yunqing had a grudge against each other, but they didn't know that Third Elder Shen had remembered Han Yunqing's kindness because of the Gu incident. Third Elder Shen was actually biased towards Han Yunqing. Third elder, it's all thanks to you today. Han Yunqing sincerely expressed her thanks. Esteemed Princess Consort, you're being too polite. This old man is here today because he has something important to tell you, Third Elder Shen said in a low voice. Chapter 5:17. Han Yunqing grew nervous at Third Elder Shen's words. She immediately gestured for the servants to withdraw. Bailey Mingxiang and Su Xiaoyu were still unreconciled over Mu Ling's actions, but none of them dared to say a word in the presence of guests. They could only withdraw one by one. When they reached the courtyard, they saw Gu Beiyue there and began to pester Gu Beiyue to complain. Dr. Gu, what do you think happened to His Highness and esteemed Wang Fei this time? They're too easy to talk to, aren't they? Little was the most depressed of all. He dearly wished that Mu Ling was here. With Mu Ling here, he'd have another genius teacher. Dr. Gu, that Xie fellow is so arrogant. Say, do you think esteemed Wang Fei and His Highness will kill their way to Medicine City tomorrow and wipe out their nest? Su Xiaoyu asked seriously. Dr. Gu, don't we still have proof of eldest young Master Xie's involvement in the black market? Why is esteemed Wang Fei so afraid of him? Zhao Mama asked. I don't get it either. If things get out of hand, we won't have to fear Medicine City. Chu Shifeng scratched his head in confusion. While everyone was talking at once, Bailey Mingxiang sat by Gu Beiyue's side with a silent smile. Gu Beiyue was a quiet man, so he didn't reject the fact that everyone was crowding around him. He hadn't been here long, but for some reason, everyone was looking for him as soon as something happened. Pill Fiend Pharmacy caused such a ruckus on its first day in the medical world. They'll only be ostracized by the various factions of the medical world. As for the Xia clan incident, aren't you curious why Mu Yingdong hasn't shown up? Gu Beiyue retorted. Mu Yingdong has no way out, but head elder Xia does. As soon as esteemed Wang Fei reveals eldest young Master Xia's involvement, head elder Xia will only pretend to know nothing and bite back at esteemed Wang Fei. Presumably, this is what Mu Yingdong wants to see the most because Mu Chaoran has already given them the evidence. Bailey Mingxiang said seriously. Miss Bailey is indeed smart, Gu Beiyue said with a smile. Dr. Gu, you flatter me. It's just a wild guess. Bailey Mingxiang was very humble. However, Gu Beiyue did not say anything more. He took the opportunity to get up and leave. After he walked away, Su Xiaoyu asked, Bailey Mingxiang, is Imperial Physician Gu doing well? Bailey Mingxiang nodded. Unexpectedly, Su Xiaoyu giggled. She's a good match for you. Think about it. As soon as she said this, everyone started to jeer. Bailey Mingxiang was embarrassed and angry at the same time. He angrily rebuked, You brat, don't talk nonsense. So what if I say it? Su Xiaoyu's provocative look really had Bailey Mingxiang under control. In fact, Bailey Mingxiang just did not like to be calculative with a child like her. She glared at Su Xiaoyu and turned to leave. Everyone laughed. Su Xiaoyu chased after her all the way to the backyard. Bailey Mingxiang knew that she was chasing after him. He was too lazy to pay attention to her and walked away quickly with his head lowered. Su Xiaoyu suddenly said coldly, Bailey Mingxiang, stop right there. Bailey Mingxiang heard her tone and felt that something was wrong. Su Xiaoyu was young, but she had a bad heart. She was always lecturing her and Su Xiaoyu did not like her. However, she had never spoken to her in such a tone. Bailey Mingxiang turned around and asked seriously, What's wrong with you? Su Xiaoyu looked around. After making sure that there was no one around, she hooked her finger and gestured for Bailey Mingxiang to come closer. Bailey Mingxiang patiently walked closer and bent down. Su Xiaoyu leaned close to her ear and said slowly, word by word, Bailey Mingxiang, you're shameless. You like His Highness the Duke of Qin. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Mingxiang felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was completely stunned. Su Xiaoyu's lips curved into a cold smile like a little devil. She continued, if you know what's good for you and follow Gu Beiyue, I'll pretend that I don't know anything. Otherwise, you'll suffer in the future. I didn't. Bailey Mingxiang retreated. Her heart was thumping and her face was pale. She said angrily, Su Xiaoyu, don't talk nonsense. I didn't. Did you tell Her Highness the Princess Consort? Tell me. What are you mumbling about? Are you trying to lure them all here? Su Xiaoyu reprimanded her fiercely. She was only 7 or 8 years old, but her fierceness was enough to intimidate Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang covered her mouth and was speechless for a long time. She had a guilty conscience. She had hidden it so well that she had fooled everyone, but she couldn't fool a child. A child's intuition was so frightening. Are you following Gu Beiyue? Su Xiaoyu asked stubbornly. Bailey Mingxiang didn't know how to answer her. She could only deny it. I didn't. Little you, why would you think that? Who told you? I could see it. Do you dare to swear to the heavens that you didn't? Su Xiaoyu asked coldly. I dare. Bailey Mingxiang threw caution to the wind. In order to hide this secret, she dared to curse herself. I, Bailey Mingxiang, swear that if I like His Highness Duke of Qin, I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Unexpectedly, Su Xiaoyu was even more vicious. You swear that if you like His Highness Duke of Qin, His Highness Duke of Qin will be torn apart by 5 horses and won't even have a burial place. Su Xiaoyu. Shut up. With a shout, Bailey Mingxiang slapped him across the face with a resounding slap. This slap was so forceful that Su Xiaoyu's face was twisted. She turned her face to the side and looked disdainfully at Bailey Mingxiang. She smiled disdainfully. You don't dare. You admit it. Bailey Mingxiang gasped for breath and took a while to calm down. What exactly do you want? You can either follow Gu Beiyue or leave. There are only 2 paths. You choose. Su Xiaoyu coldly said. What right do you have to make the choice for me? Bailey Mingxiang retorted. You can choose neither, but I'll make you regret it. Su Xiaoyu smiled. You'll tell esteemed Wang Fei. Bailey Mingxiang was actually very nervous. Are you afraid? Are you afraid that esteemed Wang Fei will see through your hypocritical face? Or are you afraid that His Highness Duke of Qin will find out? Su Xiaoyu asked with great interest. Bailey Mingxiang's hands were trembling. At this moment, her mind was completely blank. She could convince herself to give up, but she would never be able to convince herself to leave. If she could, she would have left long ago, right? Su Xiaoyu waited for a long time until her patience ran out. She roughly grabbed Bailey Mingxiang's belt and said in a low voice, Don't worry, I won't tell esteemed Wang Fei or His Highness Duke of Qin. I don't want them to be disgusted. I'll only slowly torture you. If you're not afraid, then feel free to stay. She was about to leave when she turned back and added, You'd better hide well. If esteemed Wang Fei finds out and hurts her heart, I'll definitely burn you to death. After she finished speaking, she swaggered off, leaving Bailey Mingxiang standing there in a daze, her heart thumping wildly. After an unknown amount of time, Bailey Mingxiang finally regained her senses. She ran back to her room and threw herself onto her bed, wailing loudly. Her sobs were muffled under the covers. The night was very quiet, but no one heard her. At this time, in the reception hall, Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi were both frowning. Third Elder Shen had said something unexpected. When Han Yunqing cured Long Tianma in Medical City and hid the fact that Long Tianma had been poisoned by Jun Yixia, Third Elder Shen remembered her kindness and promised to help as long as it was within his power. Han Yunqing asked him to investigate the matter of Lady Tianxin helping Han Kong'an become a director of the medical academy. At that time, Third Elder Shen found out that when Han Kangen became a director, 2 elders had passed away and the director election had been personally presided over by the 2 vice directors. With Han Kangen's medical skills and reputation, it was clear that someone had let him be elected as a director. The matter was sensitive, so Third Elder Shen couldn't directly ask the 2 vice directors. He could only investigate in secret. Who knew that after investigating for more than 2 years, he really did find some clues. Han Kangen's election as a director had something to do with Lady Lianxin, and Lady Lianxin had a close relationship with the director. In fact, the reason Han Kangen could become a director was because Lady Tianxin had asked Lady Lianxin for help. Han Yunqing had heard about this from Gu a long time ago. At that time, Gu had already told Han Yunqing that Lady Lianxin had an affair with Vice Director Lin. She didn't expect the director to be involved as well. It had to be said that Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing were very shocked. This woman isn't simple. Han Yunqing glanced at Gu Qisha, who was still crouching on a nearby chair. Gu Qisha ignored her and had been staring coldly at Third Elder Shen the entire time. Han Yunqing had no choice but to withdraw her gaze. Third Elder Shen felt uncomfortable under Gu Qisha's stare, but he didn't say anything. The grudge between Gu Qisha and Medical City wasn't something he could resolve alone. She's not simple, but since she helped you back then, why doesn't she acknowledge you now? It's really puzzling. Han Yunqing understood what Third Elder Shen was implying. Back then, Lady Lianxin had helped Han Kangen obtain the director position because she was either threatened or had made a deal. She didn't sincerely help him. Han Yunqing couldn't figure it out. Mu Xian had already changed her name to Lady Tianxin and married Han Kangen. How could she have gotten in touch with Lady Lianxin? What was the secret behind all this? Long Fei Yi also couldn't figure it out. After Mu Xian changed her name to Tianxin, she stopped contacting Mute Granny. Mute Granny also didn't know what happened afterwards. Thus, he had no way of knowing. However, the Mu family didn't know that Mu Xian was a descendant of the Western Qin imperial family, so he allowed Han Yunqing to pursue the matter. Han Yunqing fell silent for a while before she spoke cold. Your Highness, it looks like we'll have to negotiate with Medicine City as soon as possible. We can't keep Mu Ling waiting for too long. Long Fei Ye's lips curved into a cold smile. Today, Head Elder Xia had shown Pill Fiend Pharmacy his power in front of everyone. How could he not take revenge for Han Yunqing? Moreover, Medicine City was part of his plans to begin with. Third Elder Shen wasn't clear on the relationship between Lady Tianxin and the Mu clan, nor did he know why Han Yunqing was investigating these matters. He didn't understand, but since Han Yunqing had no intention of explaining herself, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask. Esteemed Wang Fei, this matter involves the academy head after all. The old man is really, Han Yunqing quickly cut him off and cupped her hands in a bow. Yunxi is endlessly grateful that Third Elder is willing to divulge such a private matter. Third Elder smiled and presented a congratulatory gift. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, this is a small token of my appreciation for Pill Fiend Pharmacy's grand opening. If Pill Fiend Pharmacy can obtain the Mu clan's medicine order, then Medical City. Third Elder wanted to say that Medical City didn't think highly of Pill Fiend Pharmacy because of its unclear relationship with Gu Qisha. Mu Yingdong went to persuade them and spent a lot of effort before they finally changed their view of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Third Elder was very curious as to how Qin Wangfei had managed to convince an old schemer like Mu Yingdong to do such a thing. But before he could finish his question, Gu Qisha started banging on the table, so he could only drop the subject. After chatting a bit more, he took his leave. Once he was gone, Han Yunqing walked in front of Gu Qisha. Hey, just what's going on between you and Medical City? Gu lifted his black mask to reveal his devastatingly beautiful face. He gave her a slight smile, but didn't answer. Instead, he looked towards Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi, get out and fight. Chapter 518. A duel. Long Fei Yi didn't react, but Han Yunqing jumped up from her chair. Gu, you're not thinking of a way to save Mu Linger, yet you're still in the mood for a duel, she asked angrily. She didn't know that Gu wanted to seek justice from Long Fei Yi over Mute Granny's matter. She also didn't know that Gu had an undying body. Long Fei Yi wanted to get to the bottom of this as well. Gu didn't have the time to care about Mu Linger. He raised his eyebrows and looked disdainfully at Long Fei Yi. You don't dare. Long Fei Yi didn't say a word. He stood up and left. He used his actions to tell Gu that if he wanted to fight, then fight. There was no point in wasting words. Your Highness. Han Yunqing shouted. She knew that she couldn't persuade Long Fei Yi this time. She didn't want to stop Long Fei Yi, but she wanted to remind him. Back in Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea, she'd said that no matter what, Gu was her savior. Long Fei Yi's internal energy had completely recovered. Even two Gus combined might not be enough to deal with the sword in his hand. Han Yunqing hoped that Long Fei Yi would show mercy. Of course, she also hoped that Gu's cheap mouth would know his place. She anxiously followed them out, but when she reached the courtyard, she couldn't find any sign of Long Fei Yi or Gu. Where are they? Long Fei Yi, Gu, get out here. Angry shouts filled the entire pill fiend pharmacy. Unfortunately, Han Yunqing only received silence in the night. Long Fei Yi and Gu were clearly avoiding her on purpose. Han Yunqing searched the entire pill fiend pharmacy but couldn't find a trace of them. She could only give up. She thought that since Gu dared to come, Long Fei Yi wouldn't refuse to acknowledge that life-saving grace. Long Fei Yi was the first to leave Pill Fiend Pharmacy and head out of the city. Gu followed behind without saying a word. Finally, Long Fei Yi stopped in the wheat fields outside the city. He stood with his hands behind his back, and his black clothes seemed especially mysterious in the night. He waited. But who knew that after waiting for so long, Gu still hadn't caught up? What's going on? He had always known that Gu was following behind him. No matter how slow he was, he should have arrived. Long Fei Yi was on guard. It was Gu's style. He would definitely do something like a sneak attack. However, Long Fei Yi had been on guard for quite a while when he saw that Gu had arrived late and was walking towards him. Gu, what's the meaning of this? Long Fei Yi asked coldly. Gu leisurely played with his slender fingers as he said, just because I'm not as fast as you, I can't be slower than you. The night is so beautiful. If this young master doesn't go for a walk, I'll be letting the heavens down. Han Yunqing was one of the few people who could truly anger Long Fei Yi, but Gu was probably one as well. Long Fei Yi narrowed his eyes dangerously and didn't waste time arguing. He simply took out the golden whip hidden on his body and lashed it at Gu. He didn't use a sword, but a whip. His swordsmanship was one of the best in Cloud Realm continent, but that wasn't his specialty. His whip skills were his true specialty. Straightforward enough. This old man likes it. Gu laughed loudly as he dodged Long Fei Yi's whip by a hair's breadth. His figure flickered as he leapt into the air and shot out a tiny seed. The seed was the size of a grain of rice as it flew towards him. It was hard to see it with the naked eye, so it was hard to dodge. But Long Fei Yi simply closed his eyes and listened. He suddenly tilted his head, and the little seed flew past his cheek and landed in the field. Whoosh! The whip moved as fast as he opened his eyes, its momentum like a rainbow. Gu didn't expect this and took the full brunt of the whip, leaving a gash on his chest. Gu looked down, his eyes narrowing into slits. But Long Fei Yi's whip didn't stop. The second whip didn't come, but a swift and fierce flick. The tiny whip seemed to be filled with boundless strength as it aimed for Gu's heart. Gu didn't dodge, but slowly raised his head. The force of the whip stirred up his long hair and red robes. His long hair was like silk and his red robes were like fire. He was unbridled in the night, just like his temperament, burning fiercely and blossoming freely. His love and hate were clear and distinct. Suddenly, the whip broke through the flames. It seemed like a light tap, but it was actually a painful blow to his heart. That's right, it was his heart. There was no mistake, no deviation at all. The vigorous strength attached to the whip poured into Gu. In an instant, he flew out like a red iris and fell into the fields. Long Fei Yi was expressionless as he elegantly withdrew his whip with a wave of his hand. He didn't move, but stood in place. His tall and proud figure stood in the vast fields under the moonlight, looking indomitable and lonely. He didn't have the joy of defeating a challenger. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking coldly in front of him. His cold face was expressionless as usual. His deep eyes were as deep as the sea. A poisonous thorn vine had unknowingly wrapped around Long Fei Ye's ankle and was climbing up his leg inch by inch. It had only wrapped around Long Fei Yi, the thorns had not yet pierced into Long Fei Yi. This was also the reason why Long Fei Yi didn't move. If he moved, he would be pricked and poisoned. Gu didn't move at all. Long Fei Ye's face was cold as he didn't move at all. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The wind blew and waves of wheat surged into the distance. Finally, the thorn vine wrapped around Long Fei Ye's entire body. Only then did Gu leisurely walk out of the wheat field. There was a long open wound on his body and a flower had bloomed on his chest. However, he looked completely fine. As he walked over, he casually played with his fingers. When he inadvertently raised his head to look at Long Fei Yi, he immediately broke into a bewitching smile. "Aya, Your Highness Duke of Qin, how did you get here?" Long Fei Yi naturally knew what had happened to him. In reality, his ankle had already been wrapped around by the thorn vine when he lashed out with his second whip. This strange thorn vine must have grown from the seed that Gu had just flicked out. This guy was a natural genius, and his control of medicinal herbs had reached the realm of perfection. A small thorn vine was not difficult for him. Long Fei Yi had lashed out 3 times and Gu had blocked 1. Although Gu had suffered a flesh wound, Long Fei Yi was at a disadvantage. One had to know that the thorny vines that wrapped around his body were covered in poisonous thorns. If he wasn't careful, he would definitely be poisoned. However, Long Fei Yi didn't seem to care much about the thorny vines. He glanced at Gu's chest and said coldly, "An immortal body." Long Fei Ye's tone was very calm. It wasn't a question. Gu laughed heartily. "You're the first person in the world to know, and will also be the last." As he spoke, he stretched out a finger and lightly hooked it on Long Fei Ye's thorny vines. As if they had a mind of their own, the thorny vines actually followed his movements and slowly tightened around Long Fei Yi. "It's poisonous," Gu reminded him kindly. Long Fei Yi stared coldly at his chest and asked coldly, "An immortal body? Could it be that the legendary Gu poison humans of Medicine City's poison sect can really be raised?" Gu avoided the question and smiled. "Long Fei Yi, are you afraid when Poison Lass isn't here? It's highly poisonous." As he spoke, he narrowed his eyes and hooked his finger. The thorny vines instantly tightened. However, at this moment, an incomparably vigorous force suddenly erupted from Long Fei Ye's body and forcibly shattered the dense thorny vines covering his body. As the thorny vines scattered on the ground, Long Fei Yi immediately soared into the sky. The newly grown thorny vines couldn't catch up to him at all. On the other hand, Long Fei Yi soared into the air and swung his whip down at lightning speed. Just like before, Gu didn't dodge. However, Long Fei Ye's whip didn't hit him this time. Instead, it wrapped tightly around his waist. Not good. Gu realized belatedly and wanted to break free, but it was already too late. Long Fei Yi flew down and swung his whip handsomely over Gu's head before wrapping it around his body again. With Long Fei Ye's strength, 2 wraps were enough to completely restrain Gu. Gu was too lazy to move and allowed Long Fei Yi to bind him. Finally, the 2 of them regained their calm. This time, Long Fei still made 3 moves while Gu didn't make a single move. It wasn't that he didn't want to attack, but that Long Fei didn't give him a chance. The thorny vines silently crept toward Long Fei's feet again, but he stomped on the ground and fiercely shook them away, not daring to approach again. This time, Gu was completely at a disadvantage. The two of them stared at each other with cold eyes and didn't say a word. Smart people often didn't need to talk too much. Gu understood a principle. He could never be killed, but he could be trapped forever, living a life worse than death. The battle was already over. However, Long Fei didn't say a word. He suddenly pulled back his whip and released Gu. Gu was rather surprised. What do you mean? Han Yunqing owes you. She's returning it to you. Long Fei said. Who wants you to return it? Gu was very fierce. She asked this prince to return it. Long Fei's face was gloomy. A storm was brewing. Who wants her to return it? Gu was even angrier. Long Fei replied word by word, this prince wants her to return it. You. Gu was furious. From now on, the two of you don't owe each other anything. Long Fei declared loudly. Gu Qishao had saved Han Yunqing's life, but now he was paying it back in her place. But Gu only laughed out loud. A life for a life. Long Fei, unless you kill me, you'll never be able to return the favor. Long Fei wasn't afraid at all. Do you believe that this prince will tell all of Cloud Realm Continent about your undying body tomorrow? You dare. Gu clawed at Long Fei's neck, but Long Fei immediately dodged. Do you dare this prince? Long Fei, don't think I can't do anything to you just because you killed Mute Granny. Gu said sternly. Long Fei grew alarmed. Who told you Mute Granny was dead? Only Chu Shifeng and Tang Li knew about Mute Granny's death. How did this guy know? Gu's lips curved up into a cold smile. Do you still dare? Long Fei lashed out with his whip, but Gu didn't dodge. He laughed out loud. Even if you trap me, Han Yunqing will find out all the same. How about we make a bet? Just what do you want? Long Fei asked. Gu reached out to grab the whip, but Long Fei simply shook him off. Get to the point. Gu Qishao smiled wickedly. Chapter 519. Gu smiled wickedly. Does your Highness Duke of Qin want this young master to state his conditions? You can choose not to, Long Fei replied. Your Highness Duke of Qin means, we can't come to an agreement. Gu smiled again. Of these two men, one loved to talk glibly, while the other cherished his words like gold. One laughed like a second nature, while the other had been expressionless for years. How were they supposed to talk? Long Fei wished he could just leave, but he couldn't. More than that, he wanted to kill Gu with a single blow, but that was even more impossible. Gu's threat just then might not have been real. It was very possible that it was just a threat, but he couldn't afford to gamble on it. Of course, Gu Qishao wanted nothing more than to take advantage of Long Fei, but he knew it was impossible. He couldn't afford to gamble on his undying body either. Once this secret was exposed, how many people would come looking for him? He might even become the public enemy of all of Cloud Realm Continent and become a rat that everyone wanted to beat up. Hadn't the poison sect been destroyed by the medical academy because the Gu poison was too dangerous? Thinking up to here, Gu Qishao's smiling eyes flickered with a touch of sorrow. Death was a man's greatest fear, but immortality was his greatest sorrow. State your conditions, Long Fei was too lazy to argue. Gu got straight to the point. Just two. First, keep the secret of my undying body. Second, Gu's expression turned vicious. Second, help me destroy Medical City. Medical City. Long Fei laughed. What, you don't dare? Gu was disdainful. Medical City was Cloud Realm Continent's #1 power. Leaving aside the medical field, its wealth and martial prowess couldn't be underestimated. A single city was enough to form a country of its own. Long Fei Yi had never been afraid of anything in his life. He was curious about the grudges between Gu and Medical City. Where did your undying body come from? What does it have to do with the poison sect? Long Fei Yi asked. Long Fei Yi, you only need to agree or not. Everything else has nothing to do with you. Gu's face was gloomy, and he no longer smiled. Knowing that he wouldn't say anything, Long Fei Yi didn't pursue the matter. Instead, he asked, what can you promise this prince? Keep your mouth shut about Mute Granny. At this point, Gu's lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. As for the matter of the antidote, this young master will admit defeat. These two matters are one and the same. Long Fei Yi said. As soon as he said that, Gu knew what he meant. Those are two different things. They're not the same thing. He had made two conditions to Long Fei Yi, but Long Fei Yi had only made one condition for him. If the antidote was included, both of them had made two conditions, which was fair. Unfortunately, Long Fei Yi was far more shrewd than the businessman Ouyang Ningnua, much less Gu. He said, Gu, you schemed against this prince regarding the antidote for broomcorn millet poison, but this prince didn't pursue the matter. What else do you want to pursue? Gu's face darkened, but he had nothing to say. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi scoffed, you're digging your own grave. If not for the matter of the antidote, Long Fei Yi would never have guessed that the black-robed man who had barged into the hidden pavilion was Gu. Nor would he have known that Gu had an undying body. Gu Qishao had thoroughly lost this battle. Gu was silent for a long while before he spoke, you're just relying on the fact that Han Yunqing likes you. Given that poison lass's intelligence, if she hadn't been bewitched by Long Fei Yi, how could she not have seen through the trick? Stay away from her. Long Fei Yi narrowed his eyes, a threatening aura emanating from his entire body. Gu was disdainful. Why should I? Without a doubt, these words angered Long Fei Yi. He moved quickly and grabbed Gu by the neck. Gu didn't take it seriously at all. Instead, he turned serious and asked Long Fei Yi, why should you? Han Yunqing is this prince's wife. Long Fei Yi laughed coldly as he retorted to Gu. Why should you question this prince? Gu Qishao laughed out loud. Long Fei, did you marry her? During the grand wedding, the Duke of Qin's estate had sent a wedding nanny to the Han estate to pick up the bride. It was even Han Kongan who'd hired the bridegroom. On the day of the wedding, Han Yunqing had been turned away at the gates. Her words, you missed the auspicious hour, come back tomorrow, had become the biggest joke in all of Tianing. If Han Yunqing hadn't been smart enough to spend the night at the Duke of Qin's estate, would she really have been able to enter? How would she have gotten off the sedan chair? How would she have entered the Duke of Qin's estate? Long Fei Yi, did you marry Han Yunqing? Did you? Marry, what did it mean to marry and take a daughter? Fetching a woman was called marriage. Faced with Gu's questions, Long Fei Yi suddenly fell silent. But Gu wasn't done yet. He lowered his voice and asked again, Long Fei Yi, what did Mute Granny tell you? Without a doubt, Mute Granny knew the secret of Han Yunqing's origins. Long Fei Yi had imprisoned Mute Granny, cured her of broomcorn millet poison, and then killed her. What was he trying to hide from Han Yunqing? When Long Fei Yi didn't answer, Gu asked again, it's not just about the poison sect, is it? Gu had always assumed that Han Yunqing's origins were only related to the poison sect. He'd always wondered whether Han Yunqing's birth father was a member of the poison sect, or Han Kongan. However, Long Fei Ye's attitude towards Mute Granny, as well as Third Elder Shin's words about Lady Lianxin, made him realize that Long Fei Yi hadn't hidden the poison sect from Han Yunqing. If it wasn't about the poison sect, then it had to be something else. Long Fei Yi evaded Gu's question. This prince will protect your secret of immortality. You've forgotten about Mute Granny. That's settled then. In other words, there was no room for discussion about destroying Medical City. However, Gu didn't pursue the matter. He stopped Long Feiyi and said, "Long Feiyi, don't you feel guilty for deceiving Han Yunqing like this?" Although Gu didn't want to admit it, he knew better than anyone how much that stupid girl Han Yunqing liked Long Feiyi. Wasn't it precisely because she liked him that he couldn't go all out against Long Feiyi? Long Fei's entire being grew still, his tall figure seeming even lonelier. He still didn't answer, but strode past Gu Qishao. Gu was as stubborn as a child as he chased after him again. "Long Feiyi, what right do you have?" He'd been deceiving her to begin with, so he owed her everything. What right did he have to keep his distance from her? Gu taunted coldly, "Long Feiyi, what are you afraid of? That girl will really leave with me one day. This young master is telling you, she'll leave with me one day." Was he afraid because he had a guilty conscience? "Shut your mouth for today's agreement." Long Feiyi didn't explain. He shoved Gu aside and left. However, he hadn't taken more than a few steps when he turned back. "Gu, she won't. She never will." Gu snorted disdainfully. He rubbed his chin and thought about Mute Granny. He recalled what had happened in the poison sect's sky pit. That poison beast had actually recognized Han Yunqing as its master. It seemed that Han Yunqing's father was most likely from the poison sect. However, aside from Long Feiyi, only Mu Yingdong knew what kind of person he was. Of course, he was merely curious. He'd already given up on the poison woman that night at the Han estate. As Gu pondered, he suddenly recalled the white-robed man from the Shadow Clan. A terrifying thought flashed through his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. How is that possible? He muttered to himself. Even he found his thoughts laughable. That Shadow Clan fellow had only gone to the sky pit for the poison beast. Meanwhile, Long Feiyi was on his way back to the city, mulling over another matter. Gu claimed that he'd killed Mute Granny, but the truth was that Mute Granny had hanged herself and was buried near the hidden pavilion. Did Gu run into Mute Granny's corpse, or did Gu lie to him? After returning to the city, the first thing Long Feiyi did was find Chu Shifeng to examine Mute Granny's corpse. After that, he went to find Han Yunqing, only to find out that Han Yunqing had gone back to the Duke of Qin's estate. By the time he returned to the Duke of Qin's estate, Han Yunqing had already fallen asleep. How could this woman be so assured? Who knows what she'll ask tomorrow? Long Feiyi stood at the bottom of Leisurely Cloud Pavilion, seemingly in a bad mood. After some hesitation, he decided not to go upstairs. He was about to leave when Bailey Mingxiang returned. Bailey Mingxiang had just returned from Pill Fiend Pharmacy, her eyes red and puffy. As soon as she saw Long Feiyi and Zhao Mama, her heart flustered and bowed. "Your Highness Duke of Qin." Long Feiyi didn't take her to heart and strode away without a word. Zhao Mama's sharp eyes, however, immediately asked, "Mingxiang, are you crying? Who bullied you?" Bailey Mingxiang had purposely returned late because she didn't want to run into Zhao Mama. But the more she was afraid, the harder it was for her to hide. "Today is my mother's birthday. When I thought of my childhood, I felt a bit sad," Bailey Mingxiang replied. Zhao Mama didn't know much about the details, so she assumed it was true. She quickly comforted Bailey Mingxiang and told him to sleep in her rooms tonight. As for Su Xiaoyu, ever since Pill Fiend Pharmacy was built, she often spent the night there, researching medicinal ingredients. It was common for her to not return home. At this time, Su Xiaoyu was indeed in Pill Fiend Pharmacy. She was alone in the pharmacy, looking through medicinal books as she searched for herbs. She could spend most of the day studying a small leaf in her hand. This little girl was truly talented and diligent. Unfortunately, she had a bad heart. Even if she became skilled in medicine in the future, she might not be willing to help others. At this time, Lil Thing was right next to her. Lil Thing didn't like this girl at first, but because it often came to the pharmacy in the middle of the night for supper and often ran into Su Xiaoyu, the two of them gradually became familiar with each other. Of course, Lil Thing didn't know that Su Xiaoyu had pushed Bailey Mingxiang to Gu Beiyue. In the dead of night, Pill Fiend Pharmacy and the Duke of Qin's mansion were quiet. All of South Ning City seemed to have fallen asleep. Everyone thought that Mu Ling had been taken away from South Ning City, but in reality, Mu Ling and head elder Xie's group were still at the inn. Mu Ling was unconscious on the bed, while head elder Xie was drinking tea and chatting with a masked man in black next door. It wasn't clear what they were talking about, but there was a lot of laughter. The masked man only left when the sky was about to brighten. However, as soon as he left, another young master arrived. He lightly knocked on the door. Head elder Xie, this one is Ouyang Ningnoa. I wonder if it's convenient for you to have a cup of tea. Chapter 520. Ouyang Ningnoa. Head elder Xie was stunned and quickly opened the door. Head elder Ouyang, you have urgent business in the middle of the night? Although Medicine City controlled most of Cloud Realm Continent's medicinal ingredients market, most of the real business depended on Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Head elder Xie and Ouyang Ningnoa were close friends. It's nothing urgent. I just happened to pass by and knew you'd be staying here tonight, so I came up for a cup of tea. Ouyang Ningnoa was very casual as he sat down to brew tea. Head elder Xie fell silent. Ouyang Ningnoa was a busy man who valued time like gold. How could a visit in the middle of the night be just a coincidence? There had to be something important going on, too. Ouyang Ningnoa glanced at the used teacup on the side before quietly drinking a few cups. Finally, head elder Xie couldn't take it anymore. Did head elder Ouyang come for Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Ouyang Ningnoa wanted to speak, but stopped himself with a smile and shook his head. Head elder Ouyang, old man doesn't treat you as an outsider, but you treat him like an outsider? Just what happened? Head elder Xie grew unhappy. Ouyang Ningnoa smiled helplessly and refused to speak. Could it be that you have business dealings with Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Head elder Xie asked seriously. From what he understood, Ouyang Ningnoa had long wanted to do business with Medicine Ghost Valley, but had been rejected time and time again. Judging from his behavior, it was very likely that he'd colluded with Pill Fiend Pharmacy and put in a good word for it. Ouyang Ningnoa nodded decisively. Exactly. Head elder Xie laughed coldly and got straight to the point. Ouyang, we can talk about anything else, but there's no room for discussion. Although the Xie clan had been currying favor with the Mu clan over the years, that wasn't their intention at all. It was the Mu clan who'd gone too far. The Wang clan might have declined, but they still had deep pockets. The Mu clan didn't dare to bully them too much, so they could only target the Xie clan. In name, they were working together against the Wang clan, but in reality, they'd been robbing the Xie clan of their fields and medicine storehouses. Moreover, the Mu clan had been eyeing the position of head elder for a long time now and caused him plenty of trouble. Thus, now that Mu Linger had fallen into the hands of the Council of Elders, he wouldn't let the matter rest. Today, even if he had to offend the Duke of Qin, he had to take Mu Linger away. Pharmacists were the soul of a medicinal family. Mu Linger was the reason why the Mu family had risen to prominence in recent years. As long as Mu Ling was gone, he wanted to see how long the Mu family could remain arrogant. Ouyang Ningnoa smiled even more helplessly. He walked over to Guild Master Xia and whispered something into his ear. Guild Master Xia's displeased expression slowly turned into one of surprise. You said you like Mu Ling, President Xia had a look of disbelief on his face. Ouyang. Aren't your jokes a little too boring? Unexpectedly, Ouyang Ningnoa replied seriously, President Xia, I'm not joking. He paused for a while, his lips curling into a self-deprecating smile. He didn't seem at all like a businessman who could shake Cloud Realm Continent's business world, but a shy young man. I won't hide it from you, but this one has admired Miss Ling, for a long time. I've come in the middle of the night for no other reason than to ask Head Elder Xia to give this one some face and not make things too difficult for that girl. Guild Master Xia was so stunned that he couldn't speak. Ouyang Ning Noa continued, Head Elder Xia, Ling, is still a little girl in the end. She doesn't know much about the grudges between our two clans, so she's innocent. As he spoke, he took out a contract. Head Elder Xia, this is a commission agreement signed by the Xia clan's head not too long ago. It stipulates that the Xia clan's profits from selling medicinal ingredients to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium for the next 3 years will be split 50-50. If President Xia is willing to make things easier for us, this one is willing to give the Xia clan 20% of the profits and change the contract to 70-30%. Guild Master Xia was even more stunned than before. 20% of the profits was no small sum, and it was for 3 years. As expected of Ouyang Ning Noa, he's so generous. Still, Guild Master Xia was very clear that Ouyang Ning Noa's demands wouldn't be low. He remained silent. But Ouyang Ning Noa simply said, Don't worry, President Xia. This one only asks that you don't use torture. He pushed the contract in front of Guild Master Xia and said sincerely, this one's feelings for Miss Ling, are true. His attitude made Guild Master Xia feel like he was receiving a betrothal gift for his granddaughter. Finally, he wavered. That's it? Ouyang Ning Noa teased. Or perhaps, President Xia is willing to marry Miss Ling, to this one. His words sounded like a joke, but Guild Master Xia knew that Ouyang Ning Noa had such intentions. Anyone with a brain couldn't help but start scheming. If Mu Linger married off to Ouyang Ning Noa, how many benefits would they get? Guild Master Xia was a shrewd man, so he naturally knew how to calculate. After all, Mu Linger's marriage wasn't something the Council of Elders could decide on, but she was in their hands. They could definitely pressure the Mu clan. Guild Master Xia got straight to the point. Ouyang, just what do you mean by this? You're still beating around the bush with old man? Ouyang Ning Noa knew that his probing had hit the right spot. Guild Master Xia's heart had been moved. He got straight to the point. As long as President Xia has a way to convince the Mu clan to marry Miss Ling, to me, I promise to sell the Xia clan's medicinal ingredients unconditionally within 5 years. At the very least, the Xia clan's medicinal ingredients will take up 50% of the market. Guild Master Xia was not only moved by his words, but pleasantly surprised as well. The 3 great clans of Medicine City all sold their medicinal ingredients to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. All 3 clans had the same type of ingredient, but Cloud Realm Trade Consortium had the final say on who to sell. Naturally, this involved the distribution of profits. For example, the Wang, Xia, and Mu clans all sold their scorpions to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium at the same time. But because the Mu clan's costs were low, they had the capital to give up more profits to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium. Thus, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium chose to sell the Mu clan's scorpions. Within 3 years, everyone in Cloud Realm Continent knew about the Mu clan's scorpions, but not the Wang or Xia clans. If Ouyang Ning Noa could sell the Xia clan's medicinal ingredients unconditionally for the next 5 years, then the Xia clan would have a chance to surpass the Mu clan even without a genius pharmacist like Mu Linger. This matter requires further consideration. If you have time, you can set a time to come to Medicine City, to discuss the details. Guild Master Xia relented. Alright, I'll definitely pay you a visit. Ouyang Ning Noa was very happy. He casually picked up the contract on the table, but Guild Master Xia was about to pick it up as well. In his moment of awkwardness, Ouyang Ning Noa beat him to it. This. Guild Master Xia was rather displeased. Ouyang Ning Noa didn't feel awkward at all. Instead, he smiled and said, since President Xia has the heart, then we'll discuss this matter at length. Just like that, Ouyang Ning Noa left happily with the contract. Guildmaster Xie's face was half black as he regretted giving in too quickly. Ouyang Ning Noa had figured out his true intentions. President, that brat's too petty. What sincerity? I think he's even willing to use marriage as a bargaining chip. The retainer couldn't take it anymore. Let's see how he talks to old man when the time comes. Guildmaster Xie said angrily. President, then what about the Duke of Kong? The retainer murmured. Before Ouyang Ning Noa's arrival, Northern Li's Duke of Kong had come to discuss Mu Ling's marriage as well. He expressed his desire for the Council of Elders to support his crown prince's decision to take Mu Ling as an imperial concubine. The Duke of Kang's conditions were also very tempting. The Duke of Kong said that as long as the Council of Elders could facilitate the marriage, Northern Li's imperial clan would be willing to open up the northern snowy regions to the Xia clan and allow them to plant medicinal ingredients there. Northern Li had Cloud Realm Continent's only snowy plateau, which was the best place to plant medicinal ingredients. The three great clans of Medicine City had coveted it for years. Guildmaster Xia furrowed his brows in silence. To him, Ouyang Ning Noa and Juni Xia were like a fish and a bear's paw, but he couldn't have his cake and eat it too. Of course, whether he wanted the fish or the bear's paw, he had to find a way to force the Mu clan to agree to the marriage. Moreover, he had to be on guard against Mu Ling, continuing to make medicinal ingredients for the Mu clan after she got married. It's difficult. Guildmaster Xia muttered to himself. President Xia muttered to himself. From this night onwards, he was probably going to have insomnia. President, that brat Ouyang Ning Noa has always worked with the Mu clan. I think the Duke of Kong is much more reliable than him. The retainer said. Juni Xia is reliable, but don't forget that Juni Xia is the head of the 100 Poisons sect. Medical City is keeping a close eye on him. Guildmaster Xia said simply. Even if he took the top spot in Medicine City, it'd be meaningless if he offended Medical City. President, the Duke of Kong is the head of the 100 Poisons sect, but the Northernly Crown Prince isn't. The retainer reminded hastily. Guildmaster Xia nodded thoughtfully. Actually, he still favored Juni Xia in his heart, but he had no idea that Juni Xia had long been in cahoots with Muing Dong. Northern Li's imperial clan had long opened up the snowy plateau to the Mu clan. Their first batch of medicinal ingredients was about to mature as well. Currently, Juni Xia was in Muing Dong's rooms, drinking merrily with him. Old man promises that old thing Xia Dei will definitely agree to such a huge temptation. Muing Dong was very happy. He'd lured Xia Dei to Pill Fiend Pharmacy to capture Mu Ling, precisely because he had a backup plan. Otherwise, how could he be willing to lose a genius pharmacist for nothing? Now, all he had to do was wait for the Council of Elders to pressure the Mu clan so that he could legitimately agree to marry Mu Ling, to Northern Li's crown prince. Juni Xia was also very confident in this matter and had no intention of discussing it. Instead, he was more concerned about the poison pond in Medicine Forest. Is there still no sign of it? Muing Dong shook his head. You're talking about the poisonous grass in Han Yunqing's poisonous pond. This old man can't figure it out. Could it be that she's already been to Medicine Forest? Juni Xia shook his head. This matter must be investigated thoroughly for this prince. Even his master couldn't cure the poison in his shoulder. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that the poison had been cultivated in Medicine Forest's poison pond. Han Yunqing had also mentioned this when she'd provoked him. His master had always wanted him to properly control Northern Li's horse farms and forbade him from interfering with Medical City and Long Fei Ye's relationship with Han Yunqing. When he returned to South Ning Prefecture, he used the excuse of investigating the poison pond in Medicine Forest to gain his master's permission. How Muing Dong planned to retaliate against Pill Fiend Pharmacy and whether head elder Xia would agree to Juni Xia's request or Ouyang Ning Noa's request would all have to wait until they returned to Medicine City. Meanwhile, at the Duke of Qin's estate, Han Yunqing hadn't slept the entire night as she pondered how to save Mu Ling. Early the next morning, she went to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. She didn't ask about the duel between Long Fei Yi and Gu, which made both parties very uneasy. They both appeared in front of her at the same time. Chapter 521. Han Yunqing seriously sized up Long Fei Yi, then looked up and down at Gu. She saw that both of them were in good spirits. Long Fei Yi was dressed in black, looking handsome and mysterious. Gu was dressed in a black robe, looking tall and proud. It seemed that both of them were fine. Han Yunqing secretly rejoiced. She thought that the result of the duel should be as she had expected. Long Fei Yi won against Gu, but he remembered that Gu had saved her, so he showed mercy and stopped there. Long Fei Yi still had this bit of grace. Gu's martial arts were far inferior to Long Fei Yi's, and even inferior to Jun Yixie's. Therefore, even if Gu knew the art of poison, the speed and strength of the poison were restricted by his martial arts, so it could not escape Long Fei Yi's eyes. Han Yunqing had already guessed it in her heart, but she still deliberately teased, Long Fei Yi, did you win? Long Fei Yi acted as if he did not hear her and sat expressionlessly beside her to make tea. Han Yunqing did not let it go. She moved closer. Who won? Long Fei Yi still did not speak. Han Yunqing actually snatched his teacup. I'm asking you. Gu watched from the side. The more he watched, the more astonished he became. When did this girl become so bold? Didn't she act like a little wife in front of Long Fei Yi before? Long Fei Yi was not angry that his teacup was snatched away. He actually took Han Yunqing's half-finished tea and drank it. As for Han Yunqing's question, he still did not answer. Strictly speaking, the duel between him and Gu Qishao last night didn't end in a clear victor. How should he explain it to Han Yunqing? Last night, both of them came back separately and did not discuss what to say. Long Fei Yi was still hesitating, but Gu said confidently, he won. Han Yunqing was not surprised, but Long Fei Yi raised his eyebrows and looked at Gu. He remembered that I saved your life, so he didn't kill me. Gu Qishao accepted his loss. His heart didn't ache, but for some reason, the open wound on his chest was extremely painful. He really wanted to say that it was a tie. Even if Long Fei Yi didn't help her repay the debt of saving her life, they were at most tied. She was only bound by the long whip and couldn't die, so how could it be considered a loss? Besides, Long Fei Yi might not be able to bind him for long. Unfortunately, some secrets were destined to rot in the stomach. Gu sat down casually and crossed his legs. He had obviously admitted defeat, but he acted as if he was number one in the world. He was especially arrogant. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything, but poured a cup of tea and placed it next to him. Gu generously picked it up. Thanks. You're welcome, Long Fei Yi said indifferently. Han Yunqing saw all of this and finally felt relieved. No matter what, at least she didn't lose Gu as a friend. Only by being united could they face the enemy together. Han Yunqing impatiently asked, let's discuss how to rescue Mu Linger. Every day that Mu Linger stayed in Medicine City was another day of suffering. Not to mention, Mu Yingdong was not easy to deal with. This time, he didn't show up and allowed head elder Xia to take Mu Linger away. There must be something going on here. If we take down Medical City, Xia Dei and Mu Yingdong will obediently lick our feet. What's a single Mu Linger compared to that? Gu Qishao looked provocatively at Long Fei. This was both sarcasm and provocation. Without Poison Girl, he wouldn't be able to deal with Medical City. Long Fei Yi replied with 2 words, you're going. You've already beaten this young master, so of course you're going. Gu was very modest. What does your Pill Fiend Pharmacy's business have to do with this prince? Long Fei Yi retorted. Long Fei Yi, you said it yourself. It's best if you don't interfere in this matter. Gu was delighted. He was more than happy to join forces with Poison Girl. However, Long Fei Yi indifferently replied, "This prince is fine with anything." Of course, this didn't mean that he was going to follow Gu's wishes. Rather, it was up to him whether he interfered or not. Han Yunqing's face darkened as she listened. When did His Highness, the taciturn Duke of Qin, start arguing with Gu's cheap mouth? But, it seemed that Long Fei Yi was quite capable of dealing with Gu's mouth. Gu narrowed his eyes and was about to retort when Gu Beiyue suddenly appeared. Compared to sitting here and watching Gu and Long Fei Yi bicker, Han Yunqing preferred to chat with Gu Beiyue. Gu Beiyue was an old hand in the medical community, so he might be able to give some good suggestions. But Gu Beiyue came with unexpected news. "Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's Ouyang Ningnua is requesting an audience." Last time, it was Ouyang Ningnua who'd told Chu Tianyin about the gunpowder. Otherwise, Chu Tianyin wouldn't have acted so quickly and used the crossbow archers to kidnap Han Yunqing. Naturally, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing would pin this debt on Ouyang Ningnua's head. Long Fei Ye's lips curved up coldly, while Han Yunqing gave a cold snort. "Since he dares to show up, let him in." Very soon, Ouyang Ningnua strode in openly, dressed in scholarly and refined robes. Those who didn't know better might mistake him for the young master of some scholarly family. "Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei." He bowed humbly and politely, not missing a single person in the room. "Your Excellency Pill Fiend, Imperial Physician Gu." Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing both wore cold expressions and didn't reply. Gu didn't think much of the man either, and simply crossed his legs to play with his bony hands. "President Ouyang," Gu Beiyue bowed as well. "You may call this one Dr. Gu. This one is no longer working at the Imperial Physician Courtyard." Compared to Gu Beiyue's modesty and gentleness, Ouyang Ningnua's refinement was especially hypocritical. "So. Then this one will call you Dr. Gu from now on." Ouyang Ningnua smiled. Gu Beiyue smiled and nodded, but didn't say anything else. Just like that, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing took the main seats, while Gu and Gu Beiyue sat on either side. No one invited Ouyang Ningnua to sit. Ouyang Ningnua had seen all sorts of situations in his life, so he remained calm and composed, not revealing the slightest trace of awkwardness. "Esteemed Wang Fei, Your Excellency Pill Fiend, this one has come to discuss a business deal. Would the two of you be interested?" he asked earnestly. Han Yunqing stared at him icily, but didn't say anything. As for Gu, he seemed more interested in his own hands and hadn't even spared Ouyang Ningnua a single glance. After a moment of silence, the atmosphere grew even more awkward. However, no one present felt the slightest bit of awkwardness. Each one was calmer than the other. "This business deal naturally has something to do with Medicine City," Ouyang Ningnua probed. Unfortunately, none of the four present reacted. A complicated look flitted across Ouyang Ningnua's eyes, but he continued with a smile. "This one has an 80% chance of rescuing Mulinger. The remaining 20% requires the assistance of esteemed Wang Fei and Your Excellency Pill Fiend." He had already said so much, but still, no one paid any attention to him. It looks like esteemed Wang Fei and Your Excellency Pill Fiend have already given up on Mulinger. It looks like this one has worried for nothing. Ouyang Ningnua turned to leave, but Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue still didn't ask him to stay. They allowed him to leave. Even though he knew that they wouldn't give up on Mulinger, Ouyang Ningnua couldn't help but lose his cool in the face of their silence. He turned around and said, "Esteemed Wang Fei, Your Excellency Pill Fiend. If you don't act now, Mulinger will be married off to the Northernly Imperial family in less than a month." "What?" Han Yunqing shot to her feet. "Ouyang Ningnua, what do you mean by this?" She hadn't planned on paying any attention to this guy, but who knew that he would bring such terrifying news? When did the Northernly Imperial family get involved in this matter? Han Yunqing was shocked, but she quickly thought of Jun Yixie. Jun Yixie had been in cahoots with Mu Yingdong for a long time. Wasn't it all thanks to Mu Yingdong that Jun Yixie had been able to freely enter and exit the medicine forest and grow new poison plants in the mysterious poison pond that Mu Yingdong had opened up? When he saw Han Yunqing stomp her feet, Ouyang Ningnua knew that his trip today hadn't been in vain. Esteemed Wang Fei, may I have a cup of tea? Ouyang Ningnua was here to ask for a seat. He had come here with the intention of having a long and detailed discussion. But Han Yunqing only replied coldly, just what do you want to do? Get to the point. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one sincerely wishes to cooperate with Pill Fiend Pharmacy. We must sit down and discuss the details. Ouyang Ningnua felt helpless. After so many negotiations, this was the first time he didn't even have a seat. At this moment, Gu Qisha glanced back and said coldly, there's no need to talk. Only Pill Fiend Pharmacy can sell my medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients. Han Yunqing immediately understood. So Ouyang Ningnua wanted to sell medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients. You're thinking too much. Han Yunqing gave a cold snort. Medicine City had a monopoly on the supply of medicinal ingredients, while Cloud Realm Trade Consortium controlled the market for them. Pill Fiend Pharmacy had finally managed to squeeze in a share of the profits, so how could it work with the consortium again? In the future, Pill Fiend Pharmacy would expand and open more and more branch stores. Once it expanded its cooperation with Medicine City, it would definitely be able to contend against the consortium. It wasn't Medicine City that feared Pill Fiend Pharmacy the most, but Ouyang Ningnua. Ouyang Ningnua pretended to be mysterious and sighed lightly. What a pity for Miss Ling, Mu Ling, in the hands of the Council of Elders. How could Mu Yingdong marry her off just because he wanted to? Han Yunqing probed. If Mu Yingdong wasn't confident, why would he allow head elder Xia to bring her back to Medicine City? Ouyang Ningnua retorted. Where did you get that information? How certain are you that you can save Mu Ling? Han Yunqing was only probing. There was no way she'd cooperate with Ouyang Ningnua. But Ouyang Ningnua didn't say a word. Since esteemed Wang Fei has no plans to cooperate, then this one will take his leave. Besides Medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients, everything else is negotiable. Han Yunqing finally relented. Esteemed Wang Fei, if you've thought things through, you can come find this one at any time within a month. Ouyang Ningnua had already reached the door when he turned back and added, of course, after a month, no matter how sincere esteemed Wang Fei is, this one will be powerless to help. So speaking, he strode out the door with a sinister smile on his lips. His ultimate goal was indeed the Medicine Ghost Valley's medicinal ingredients, but today he wasn't here to talk about cooperation, but to deliver a message to these people. He, Ouyang Ningnua, had been in the business world for many years and loved to sit on top of the mountain and reap the spoils of war. He believed that with Long Fei Ye's skills and Han Yunqing's intelligence, they'd definitely be able to take care of Jun Yixie. He was looking forward to a month's time. After Ouyang Ningnua left, Han Yunqing and the rest of the group remained silent as they exchanged glances. This is going to be troublesome. Chapter 522. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's guest hall was silent. In the end, it was Long Fei Yi who spoke first. Gu Beiyue, what do you think of this matter? Gu Beiyue stood up. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei, I'm an expert in treating illnesses and saving lives, but this, I really don't understand. There are still a few prescriptions waiting for me to review, so I'll take my leave first. After saying that, he really left. As a doctor, he naturally didn't understand much, but if he didn't, why didn't he leave earlier? Long Fei Yi had intentionally asked him, but he had intentionally avoided the question. Long Fei Yi knew what was going on, so perhaps he was also on his guard. Han Yunqing didn't think too much about it. Her mind was currently focused on Mu Linger. She hesitated for a moment, then seriously said, "Old ghost, Mu Linger should be out of South Ning City by now. Can you escort her back to Medicine City?" The 3-month agreement could guarantee that Mu Linger wouldn't die. Once Mu Linger returned to the Council of Elders, even if they punished her, she would still have the protection of the Mu clan. However, the people escorting her back were all from the Xia clan. With head elder Xia's attitude, he would definitely allow his subordinates to lynch Mu Linger. The Mu clan had been tyrannical for so many years that even the smaller clans were filled with resentment, let alone the Xia clan. How could they not take advantage of such a good opportunity to vent their anger? If he took off his black robes, no one would know that he was Gu Qi Sha. Even if he was discovered, it wouldn't matter. Han Yunqing was so serious, but who knew that Gu would take off his black hood and joke, "Poison girl, how am I old?" How could this guy still have the mood to joke around at a time like this? Han Yunqing was furious. "Do I have to call you a brat?" Gu was at a loss for words. "You go with them." Once the Wang and Xia clans arrived to discuss the price of the herbs, His Highness and I will also make a trip to Medicine City, Han Yunqing said seriously. Regardless of what Ouyang Ningnua was plotting, their top priority right now was to prevent Guild Master Xia from being bewitched by Juni Xia and forcing the Mu clan to marry Mu Ling, off to the northernly imperial family. With their current opposing positions, if they directly told President Xia that Juni Xia and the Mu family had colluded, that old thing would definitely not believe it. Instead, he would suspect that they were trying to sow discord. However, if they could inform the Xia family about this through the Wang family, things would be completely different. Gu didn't seem too happy about it. He glanced at Long Fei Yi and said, "With your Highness Duke of Qin's abilities, wouldn't it be easier to kidnap someone without anyone knowing? What's the point of going through so much trouble with those people?" Long Fei sat on one side, drinking his tea without a change in expression. Han Yunqing couldn't help but roll her eyes and say angrily, "Then how do you want Mu Ling, to live from now on? Is she going to hide in her room and never see anyone? Or is she going to change her identity and change her appearance? If they could use force, how could she and Long Fei Yi allow Guild Master Xia to take Mu Ling, away when she was already at Pilfine Pharmacy's gates?" Gu was at a loss for words again. "Let's get to the point. Are you going or not?" Han Yunqing was a little fierce. Gu faintly said, "I'll go. But you have to promise me that you'll never tell Mu Ling, that I'm Gu Qi Sha." If that girl found out that he was Gu Qi Sha, how could he continue to live in Pilfine Pharmacy after rescuing her? Han Yunqing was stunned. She immediately stood up and solemnly raised her hand to swear, "From today until the day I die, I will never tell Mu Ling, a single word about your identity. Otherwise, Pilfine Pharmacy won't be able to earn a single cent." Gu mulled over her words and vaguely felt that something was wrong. Han Yunqing pretended to be angry and kicked his leg. "Is this enough? Why aren't you going after her?" Gu couldn't care less. When had he ever been serious with Han Yunqing? He immediately stood up. "Don't worry, only I can bully that girl." Then he left, waving as he walked. "Poison girl, see you in Medicine City." Seeing Gu Qishao's carefree and unrestrained form, Long Fei's lips rose into a gloating smile. "Idiot." Han Yunqing looked at him suspiciously. Long Fei Yi immediately withdrew his smile and awkwardly cleared his throat. Ouyang Ningnua seems to know a lot about the Mu clan and Juni Xia's shady dealings. This guy has deep connections with the 3 great clans of Medicine City. He has many eyes and ears. Even the most secretive transactions in the black market couldn't be hidden from him, let alone something like this. Han Yunqing said, then asked, "Your Highness, do you have a plan for this?" Ouyang Ningnua had always wanted to make a move against Medicine City, so how could he let Juni Xia off the hook so easily? "Let's wait for the Wang and Xia clans to arrive. Write a letter to urge them," Long Fei Yi said. With Gu escorting Mu Ling, Han Yunqing's anxious heart calmed down. She knew that no matter how urgent this matter was, it had to be planned slowly. After all, their opponents this time weren't ordinary people. All right. She was already at the door when she turned back to look at him. Long Fei, you look very good when you smile. She smiled faintly and turned to leave. Soon after, she heard a coughing sound behind her. Long Fei had choked on his tea. Han Yunqing wrote a letter to Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming on the same day. Previously, she had agreed to let them negotiate a price before coming to her for evidence of the black market transactions. Now, she wanted them to arrive within 10 days. Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming were still trying to get to know each other, but after receiving the letter, they met almost every day. They even invited a number of influential figures from the Wang and Xia clans to participate in the negotiations. Apparently, the Wang and Xia clan heads had met in private before they arrived. As for what they talked about, no one knew. Over the past 10 days, Han Yunqing had been paying close attention to Mu Ling, and the Mu clan's movements. She'd thought that Ouyang Ningrua would pay them a visit, but he hadn't shown up again. Long Fei was still the same as before. No matter what happened, he was always calm and indifferent. Before Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming's arrival, apart from Han Yunqing, he'd never brought up this matter of his own accord. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was Han Yunqing's business, so he had his own matters to attend to. Over the past 10 days, the authorities and aristocratic families of the 3 central prefectures and the various cities in Jiangnan joined forces to establish an organization called the South Central Governor's Office. They elected Su Liaoding, the prefectural governor of South Ning Prefecture, as the new governor. General Bailey reorganized the major armies and reissued the Tiger Tally to serve the new governor. After all, Long Fei had personally arranged for Su Liaoding to be stationed in South Ning Prefecture. General Bailey had given the commander's tally to Su Liaoding in the morning, and the latter had personally presented it to His Highness Duke of Qin at noon to express his loyalty and plead for his acceptance. His Highness Duke of Qin only replied, "Give it to Bailey Yuanlong. Only he's qualified." Thus, the commander's tally returned to General Bailey's hands after going through the motions. His Highness Duke of Qin's 10 fingers didn't touch any authority or responsibility, but he had firm control over the entire South Central region. Over the past 10 days, Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma had been keeping an eye on South Ning Prefecture's affairs as well, including Mu Ling. Unfortunately, father and son were powerless to interfere. To them, they should be thanking the heavens and earth that the Duke of Qin wasn't plotting against them. As Emperor Tianhui's illness grew more and more serious, Long Tianma had been itching to make a move. He wanted to send troops to West Jing, but feared the Chu clan's power. He'd instigated a few imperial sons and bribed capable officials from Western Zhou to fight Chu Qingge to the death. Chu Tianyin assisted Chu Qingge while continuing to search for the Western Qin imperial orphan. Unfortunately, he hadn't found any clues. 10 days passed by quickly. Mu Ling, was about to arrive at Medicine City, while Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming had arrived as promised. This time, the old man and young man were much closer to each other than last time. Han Yunqing invited them to sit, but the lofty Xia Hongming actually waited for Wang Zhongyang to sit down before taking a seat himself. Han Yunqing couldn't help but chuckle to herself at his upbringing. Esteemed Wang Fei, this is the final result of our discussions. Please look it over. Wang Zhongyang presented a list with both hands, listing all of the Wang and Xia clans' low-grade medicinal ingredients and their prices. The Mu clan and Han Yunqing had agreed on 10 taels, while the Wang and Xia clans had offered 12 taels. Han Yunqing glanced at the list before saying, 2 taels higher. Esteemed Wang Fei, I won't hide it from you, but this is already the lowest price, Wang Zhongyang said seriously. Xia Hongming immediately chimed in, Esteemed Wang Fei, the Mu clan's costs are much lower than ours. You know that as well. Han Yunqing's eyes flashed craftily before she asked lazily, how is it lower than yours? Esteemed Wang Fei, the Mu clan's medicinal fields are the most fertile in Medicine City. They're using their power to suppress the pharmacist's wages, Xia Hongming replied hastily. I know all that. How much can these be worth? Han Yunqing asked unhappily. Xia Hongming felt helpless. Besides these reasons, he couldn't think of anything else. Unexpectedly, Wang Zhongyang lowered his voice and said, Esteemed Wang Fei, there's something. He trailed off, leaving Xia Hongming puzzled. They discussed everything before coming here. Was Wang Zhongyang still holding back? What was he trying to say? Long Fei Yi also looked over. Wang Zhongyang looked like he was in a dilemma. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one doesn't know if this is true or not, but there's no need to talk about something that you don't know the truth of, Long Fei Yi said. But Wang Zhongyang was in a difficult position. Xia Hongming couldn't take it anymore and kept shooting glances at Wang Zhongyang. Second master, just tell us what you know. Esteemed Wang Fei will believe us. Only then did Wang Zhongyang open his mouth. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one heard a few years ago that the Mu family had experimented with a batch of high-yield herbs in northern Li's snowy highlands. They were considered low-end goods and could even survive in normal medicine fields. If this is true, then the Mu clan won't suffer a loss even if they sell it to you for 10 taels of silver. Everyone was shocked by these words, especially Xia Hongming. He blurted out, how could the Mu clan have gotten to the snowy highlands? This is also hearsay. I don't know if it's true or not, so this one doesn't dare to speak rashly. After all, this matter is complicated, Wang Zhongyang said in a low voice. There's no need to talk about hearsay with me. This Wang Fei only wants to know, is 12 taels your final price? Han Yunqing's tone became unyielding. Wang Zhongyang didn't say anything for a long time. Xia Hongming saw that the situation wasn't right and steeled his heart. Chapter 523. Xia Hongming sensed that something was amiss and told Han Yunqing, Esteemed Wang Fei, this one has heard of the Mu clan colluding with Northern Li's imperial clan as well. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing exchanged meaningful glances at his words. Wang Zhongyang's lips curved up into a cold smile, but he was in no rush to speak. When Xia Hongming saw no response, he immediately added, this one found out a few years ago. The Mu clan has been lowering the prices of Cloud Realm Continent's medicinal ingredients over the past few years precisely because Northern Li's snowy highlands have produced a lot of high-yielding ingredients. Not only are they low-end, but they're also producing high-end goods at low cost. Esteemed Wang Fei, the Wang and Xia clans only have a few mu of land that's been passed down from their ancestors. They don't have many ingredients on hand, so if they keep lowering the prices, they'll really have no way to survive. Only then did Wang Zhongyang speak up. Esteemed Wang Fei, if we keep lowering the prices, the Wang and Xia clans won't be able to hold on. When the time comes, there won't be any more ingredients to supply. The losses won't make up for the gains. Han Yunqing nodded thoughtfully. The Mu clan is colluding with Northern Li. That's really surprising. Wang Zhongyang didn't speak, but Xia Hongming quickly added, isn't that so? When I first heard about it, this one was surprised as well. Actually, Xia Hongming had never heard of the matter at all. He was given a fright when Wang Zhongyang brought it up. But in front of Qin Wang Fei, he could only throw caution to the wind. Even if it was fake, he had to make it sound real. Otherwise, if Qin Wang Fei kept lowering the prices, it'd be hard for him to explain himself to the Xia clan. His father had almost crippled him for selling medicine at high prices in the black market. His father had already said that if they couldn't come to an agreement this time, there was no need for him to go back. Han Yunqing glanced at the list of prices again before nodding after some hesitation. All right, this Wang Fei won't make things difficult for you. Let's just set the price. This Wang Fei will place orders based on needs every month. The goods will be delivered at the beginning of the month and settled at the end of the month. What do you think? Compared to the agreement with the Mu clan, these terms were much more lenient. Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming agreed immediately, and Han Yunqing had someone draw up an agreement. After signing it on the spot, she handed over the evidence of the black market's dealings with the two men. The two of them were overjoyed. After expressing their gratitude, they left happily. After returning to the inn, Wang Zhongyang was just about to speak when Xia Hongming beat him to it. "Second master, there's something I need to ask of you. You don't have to be so polite with me. If you have something to say, just say it." Wang Zhongyang was very generous. Xia Hongming lowered his voice. "Second old master, about what happened today. I have to report it to my father. Today's matter can be considered to have gone smoothly. He. You and I will be able to report back," Wang Zhongyang said with a chuckle. Xia Hongming hesitated for a moment and lowered his voice. "Second master, where did you hear about the collusion between the Mu family and Northern Li?" Wang Zhongyang was shocked and said in a panic, "I didn't say that the Mu family colluded with Northern Li. I only heard that the Mu clan planted medicinal herbs in the snowy highlands, that's all. Didn't you say that they were colluding?" If I didn't say that, would the princess consort have agreed so easily?" Xia Hongming felt helpless. I thought you really did hear about it. Aren't you lying? If the princess consort and His Highness Duke of Qin hear about it, Wang Zhongyang's expression was anxious. "We'll be in big trouble." Sure. Xia Hongming also became nervous. "Second master, let's take this matter seriously. No matter who asks, we'll say the same thing. The Mu family is colluding with Northern Li. This." Wang Zhongyang hesitated. Xia Hongming comforted him. "This matter concerns both our futures. Second master, why should you be soft-hearted towards the Mu family? Now that Mu Ling has fallen into my grandfather's hands, the Mu family's good days won't last long." Wang Zhongyang's eyes hardened as he said, "Fine." And so, the two of them came to an agreement. That day, Wang Zhongyang used the excuse that he needed to search for wild herbs nearby and didn't return to Medicine City with Xia Hongming. After Xia Hongming left, Wang Zhongyang secretly returned to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. When he entered, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing were chatting with Elder Wang over tea. Second Master Wang was Elder Wang's younger brother and was considered a significant figure in the Wang family. It was precisely because of the black market incident that he lost face and couldn't raise his head in front of Elder Wang. "Is everything done?" Elder Wang asked, displeased. Second Master Wang resentfully replied, "It's done." With Xia Hongming's mouth, House Lord Xia and Head Xia will definitely believe me. Elder Wang sighed. "If we can topple the Mu and Xia clans this time, it can be said that your merits offset your faults." Second Master Wang didn't dare say anything else. He clasped his hands and withdrew. "Your Highness, Mu Ling will arrive in Medicine City in 3 days. According to the Council of Elders rules, she will be imprisoned in the Medicine Forest. According to custom, the Council of Elders will personally interrogate her as soon as she arrives and pass judgment after a vote. Unfortunately, Medicine City's decennial Grand Medicine Testing Convention is just a few days away, so the Council of Elders has plenty of work to do." Old man reckons that Mu Ling's case will be delayed until after the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, Elder Wang said seriously. "No matter. The more time passes, the more the Mu and Xia clans will fight over her," Long Fei Yi said. Han Yunqing wanted to save Mu Ling, but he wanted to use this chance to support the Wang clan so they could regain control of Medicine City. If he could take over Medicine City, then all of Cloud Realm Continent's southern regions would be under his control. "Where will the Grand Medicine Testing Convention be held?" Han Yunqing asked. "It'll be held in the Medicine Forest. Esteemed Wang Fei, don't worry. Many members of the medical community will be invited to the convention, including all the major medicine merchants. The Council of Elders sent out the invitations, so Pill Fiend Pharmacy will probably receive them in a day or two, Elder Wang said with a smile. Medicine Forest. Han Yunqing's eyes flashed with calculation. What is it? Long Fei Yi asked. Nothing, it's been a while since I've been there, Han Yunqing grinned. As expected, Pill Fiend Pharmacy received an invitation from the Council of Elders 2 days later. However, they only invited Han Yunqing and His Excellency Pill Fiend to the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. They didn't invite Long Fei Yi. Although Long Fei Yi wasn't a member of the medical community, Long Fei Ye's status made it impossible for him to be left out. It was obvious that head Elder Xia was holding a grudge and purposely didn't invite him. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was the one who'd offended them, not His Highness Duke of Qin. After flipping through the 2 invitations, Han Yunqing said regretfully, Your Highness, they didn't invite you, what should I do? Long Fei Yi wiped his sword expressionlessly as he replied, Your Lordship will escort you there. Is he really going to be a bodyguard now? Han Yunqing almost laughed out loud, but she pretended to be nervous and hastily bowed. This concubine can't afford it. Long Fei Yi finally looked up and patted her head as if he was petting a puppy. It's fine, this lordship is happy to do so. After saying that, he lowered his head and continued to wipe his sword. His serious expression left Han Yunqing at a loss for words. Long Fei, just then, did you count as sweet-talking? Why did Han Yunqing feel as if she had just eaten honey? The next day, Qin Wangfei set out for Medicine City under the escort of Guard Long. In Medicine City, after Mu Ling was locked up in the Medicine Forest prison, the tension between the 3 great clans and the various factions within the Council of Elders grew thicker and thicker. As soon as Mu Ling was locked up, the Mu clan's faction within the Council of Elders forcefully arranged for jailers to guard her. This time, head Elder Xia was also very forceful and refused all of the Mu clan's jailers with the excuse of avoiding suspicion. Mu Yingdong was so angry that he smashed his favorite teapot in his study. Xia Dei, you've gone too far. Jun Yi Xia domineeringly crossed his legs and arrogantly sipped his tea without saying a word. Mu Yingdong stepped on the shards on the floor and anxiously asked, Xia Dei still hasn't replied to you? What's the rush? The snowy plateau is such a great temptation and even you couldn't resist it, let alone him. Jun Yi Xia disdainfully said. Mu Yingdong's heart felt stifled and he suddenly didn't know how to refute. Jun Yi Xia was doing fine, so why was he insulting him? He couldn't help but admit that back then, he had colluded with Jun Yi Xia and agreed to help Jun Yi Xia grow poison in the poison pond in the medicine forest because he couldn't resist the temptation of the snowy plateau. When the Grand Medicine Testing Convention is over, he'll definitely make an appointment with this prince. Jun Yi Xia was very confident and seemed to be in a good mood. He smiled and said, Mu Yingdong, how about we make a bet? Mu Yingdong didn't dare. Who knew what this guy would propose? He smiled and said, Your Highness Sanfua Duke is so confident, so this old man is also relieved. Old man is just afraid that Ling will suffer in the next 10 days. This girl, Sai, in the end, she's innocent. Mu Yingdong was still hoping that after Mu Ling married into Northernly, she wouldn't hold a grudge against him as her father. Father and daughter could mend their old relationship and work together to develop the Mu clan. After all, the Mu clan cooperating with Northern Li's imperial family was like asking a tiger for its skin. If Mu Ling could wholeheartedly side with the Mu clan when she became the crown prince consort, then he wouldn't be too restrained by Jun Yi Xia. Jun Yi Xia didn't have any compassion, especially towards women. Coldly, he replied to Mu Yingdong, It's not like she's going to die. What's the point of worrying so much? Mu Yingdong was about to persuade him when he changed the topic. I heard that the Council of Elders also invited people from Pill Fiend Pharmacy. They invited Han Yunqing and Gu Qi Sha. Xia Dei sure has guts. He didn't invite the Duke of Qin, Muingdong said. Zhu Nixie's eyes flashed when he heard this. So even if Long Feiyi comes, he won't be able to enter the medicine forest. He, with the Duke of Qin's personality, he won't show up without an invitation, Muingdong laughed. He was too happy to see Xie Dei offend Long Feiyi. While Muingdong and Zhu Nixie were scheming, the Xie clan was also painstakingly scheming. You're saying that Muingdong and Northern Li's imperial family have been in cahoots for a long time? Xie Dei received this news as soon as he returned to the Xie clan. Patriarch Xie's expression was grave. Father, regardless of whether this is true or not, we can't be careless. Why didn't you spread this news earlier or later? Why did you have to spread it now? Where did you hear it from? Xie Dei asked solemnly. The snowy plateau was too important to the Xie clan. He naturally wouldn't give it up so easily. That child, Hengming, told me. Patriarch Xie told him about Xie Hengming, Wang Zhongyang, and Han Yunqing discussing the price. Xie Dei was very surprised and immediately called Xie Hengming over. Is this true? Why didn't you mention it before? Xie Hengming had no idea that Zhu Nixie was discussing Mu Ling's marriage with Xie Dei. He and Wang Zhongyang had already agreed on a unified statement and were determined to slander the Mu clan in order to protect themselves. Thus, he said very seriously, Grandfather, I only heard about this not too long ago. I heard it from the Mu clan at the Medical Materials Association. I didn't think much of it and thought it was just a joke. But when I went to Pill Fiend Pharmacy, Second Master Wang mentioned it. It's one thing for me to hear it, but even Second Master Wang has heard about it. This matter, there's no smoke without fire. Xie Dei's expression was complicated. After hesitating for a long time, he asked seriously, how did Han Yunqing and Long Feiyi react? Xie Hengming hurriedly replied, they were very shocked. Qin Wangfei didn't believe it at first. Second Master Wang and I spent a lot of effort before she finally believed us and agreed to the price. Chapter 524. Once you tell a lie, you have to cover it up with countless other lies. Rather than calling this a theorem, it was more like a curse that no one could escape from. Xie Hengming could only continue to fabricate lies in the face of head elder Xie and house head Xie's doubts. What do the Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei think of this matter? Head elder Xie asked. The Duke of Qin didn't say a word. Qin Wangfei didn't believe it, but when she heard me and Second Master Wang say the same thing, she believed it and didn't say anything else, Xie Hengming replied. Head elder Xie was still doubtful at first, but after hearing this, he believed it a little more. He thought that with Long Feiyi and Han Yunqing's shrewdness, they wouldn't casually express their opinions. Ming, who did you hear this from in the Mu clan? Is this news reliable? House head Xie was very cautious. I heard it from Mu Chaoran's 2 lackeys. Father, it is better to believe in such things than not to believe in them. In my opinion, it's definitely true. Think about it, how did the poison pond in the medicinal forest disappear into thin air? Wasn't the Mu clan head in the medicinal forest the night the poison pond disappeared? And Northern Li's Duke of Kong is the sect head of the 100 Poisons sect. Don't you think it's too much of a coincidence? It could be said that Xie Hengming had racked his brains to make these 2 old men believe him. It was a fluke, and every word he said was quite convincing. Head elder Xie and house head Xie looked at each other nervously. In the end, they completely believed that the Mu clan and Zhu Nixie had been in cahoots for a long time. After Xie Hengming left, house head Xie's first words were, Father, you didn't refuse Ouyang Ning Nua, did you? Of course not. Do you think I've gone senile? Head elder Xie retorted unhappily. House head Xie was resentful, but didn't dare to say anything. Head elder Xie was silent for a moment, then suddenly slammed the table. That Zhu Nixie. He joined forces with Muing Dong to trick the old man. Ha, he wants to take Mu Ling her back. Dream on. Father, in my opinion, Yang Ning Nua wants to marry Mu Ling, only because of her talent in medicine concocting. We have to teach Mu Linger a lesson first. Firstly, we can suppress the Mu clan's momentum before the Grand Medicine Testing Convention begins. Secondly, we can test Yang Ning Nua's sincerity. Old man sent people from the Lin family to guard the prison. President Xie sneered. The Xia clan head immediately understood. Not long ago, a concubine-born young master of the Mu clan had beaten up the Lin clan's only son until he was crippled. The Mu clan had paid a few silver taels and settled the matter. Now that the Lin clan had the chance, how could they let Mu Linger go? Before the trial of Mu Linger, no one had the right to punish her. The Elders Guild could only lock her up. If Elder Xia sent people from the Xia family to deal with Mu Linger, it would leave a weakness for the Mu family. When the trial of Mu Linger was in the future, the Xia family would not be able to take the lead. Instead, they would have to avoid suspicion. However, if he sent people from the Lin family, no matter what they did to Mu Linger, it would have nothing to do with the Xia family. Just as the father and son finished their discussion, an attendant came in with a report. Lord President, Northern Li's Duke of Kong is outside the city, requesting an audience. Elder Xia was about to refuse, but Xia family head said, Father, the trial hasn't begun yet. Let's not alert them yet. Let's see what kind of tricks they have up their sleeves. If we can find irrefutable evidence of Mu Ingdong's collusion with Juni Xia, then the Mu clan. It'll be difficult to explain to Medical City. Elder Xia was very much in agreement. He ordered, tell the Duke of Kong that we'll discuss everything in detail after the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. He thought for a while, then said in a low voice, help me make an appointment with Yang Ning Nua. Before the Grand Medicine Testing Convention begins, old man must have a good talk with him. Xia family head was overjoyed and immediately went to do it himself. What should have been a foregone conclusion had been set in stone by Yang Ning Nua, Han Yunqing, and Long Fei Yi. Finally, Xia Hongming added fuel to the fire, turning the situation into a new one. Mu Ingdong and Juni Xia, the two masterminds behind the scheme, were now fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. Even so, the two of them were still feeling complacent. After receiving Elder Xia's reply, Juni Xia didn't have any suspicions. He also hoped that this matter could be delayed for a few more days so that he could stay in Medicine City for a few more days. After all, he'd been confined to Northern Li's horse ranch by his master for the past few months. His entire body was growing moldy. He'd originally planned to take a trip to the poison pond in Medicine Forest, but his shoulders suddenly began to hurt again. Juni Xia had no choice but to return to the Mu clan. The poison in his shoulder was acting up more and more frequently. It was so painful that he had no choice but to use anesthetics to stop the pain. Han Yunqing, once this prince takes over Medicine City, I'll make sure your pill fiend pharmacy suffers. Juni Xia swore in his heart. At that moment, Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi were riding on the same horse. While they were still on the road, she suddenly sneezed. Long Fei Yi immediately took off his cloak and wrapped it around her before pulling her into his arms again. I'm not cold. I think someone's cursing me, Han Yunqing joked. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything at first, but after a while, he calmly said, Han Yunqing, you must have offended quite a few people after entering the Duke of Qin's estate, right? Han Yunqing wanted to correct him. She wouldn't have offended anyone just because she entered the Duke of Qin's estate. Marrying him would have offended people. That's right, I've always offended women. Han Yunqing raised her head and asked seriously, Your Highness, don't you think it's strange? Long Fei Yi pretended not to hear and continued to stare straight ahead. Although his face was expressionless, it was clear that his face was stiff. Han Yunqing couldn't help but laugh. Long Fei Ye's large hand pressed her head into his chest. At that moment, the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. Actually, Han Yunqing wanted to ask Long Fei Yi directly what he thought of all the women who liked him. However, she wasn't that gutsy yet. As the date of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention approached, people from all over the medical world began to gather in Medicine City. The city gradually became lively, but the prison cells in the forest were deathly silent. Aside from the jailers and additional personnel sent by the Council of Elders, no one was allowed to approach Mu Ling before the trial began. Every morning, when a beam of light shone through the small skylight into the dark prison cell, Mu Ling would place a pill in a white porcelain bottle. When she entered the cell, all of her belongings had been confiscated. She had only stolen a bottle of life-saving pills and an empty bottle. This was how she kept track of the days. She had already placed 13 pills in the bottle. 7 more would be the day of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, and those people would begin to judge her. No matter how they judged her, they wouldn't be able to kill her. As long as she didn't die, there was still hope. After the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, she would need to place another 70 pills in the bottle. Then, she would be able to make a trip to Pill Fiend Pharmacy and see Chi brother. Before the small bottle could be filled, the door to the cell was suddenly kicked open. Blinding light flooded in, and Mu Ling instinctively squinted. Through the blurry light, she could make out a tall and sturdy figure standing in the doorway. Because the light was against her, she couldn't see the person's face. She only felt that he was unfamiliar and didn't seem like a jailer. Before Mu Ling could adjust to the light, the cell door was suddenly slammed shut with a bang. The room returned to its original dusky state, but Mu Ling was able to clearly see the person's appearance. It was a burly man in his 30s. His face was covered with a full beard, and his expression was fierce and fierce. Mu Ling was greatly uneasy. She immediately stood up and angrily asked, "Who are you? Who allowed you to come in?" The burly man smiled vulgarly, revealing a mouthful of black teeth. Mu Ling, Hee, you really live up to your name. You're really beautiful. Mu Ling's entire body trembled. She subconsciously retreated and angrily said, "I'm warning you, don't come any closer. The Council of Elders hasn't interrogated me yet. Even if they do, if you dare to hurt me in the slightest, my Mu family will pursue this matter to the end." The burly man snorted disdainfully. "Hurt you? Do you have proof?" Mu Ling's face was ashen. Her heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were all trembling. However, she had made a lot of progress in the past year as a fugitive. She immediately changed her words. "Who sent you? How much benefits did they give you? I can give you double." The burly man didn't answer. He only sneered and approached step by step. Mu Ling retreated step by step. Her mouth was trembling, but she still forced herself to speak. "I have a brand new prescription here. If you let me go, I'll consider you the one who developed this prescription. You can sell it to Mu Chaoran. He'll definitely give you the highest price in all of Medicine City. Also..." Before Mu Ling could finish speaking, the burly man was already in front of her. "Girl, if you can cure my nephew's crippled leg, perhaps I can consider letting you go." Mu Ling's heart almost stopped when she heard these words. This guy was from the Lin family. She wanted to escape, but it was already too late. The burly man grabbed her hair and pressed her head against the wall. Then, his large face leaned in with an extremely vulgar smile. He said, "Girl, if you lick this uncle a few times, this uncle will let you go. How about it?" Mu Ling was so disgusted that she couldn't stop vomiting. The burly man was unhappy. He was about to reach out with his other hand, but for some reason, both his hands and legs were in pain. It was as if thousands of worms were gnawing on them. He quickly let go and looked carefully. He discovered that there was a small worm wriggling on his arm. He was wondering where the worm came from when Mu Ling suddenly pointed at his beard and screamed. "Ah, The burly man looked down suspiciously and saw a large mass of worms crawling out from his beard. Soon, several of them fell out from his hair. Ah! The burly man screamed in fright and fiddled with the worms with all his might. It would have been better if he hadn't done so, but as he fiddled with them, there were more and more of them wriggling around. He didn't know if they were trying to burrow into his skin or crawl out from his skin. How could the burly man still care about Mu Ling? He screamed for help as he ran out, not even bothering to close the cell door. Mu Ling was also scared out of her wits. She foolishly leaned against the wall, dumbstruck and her mind blank. The burly man ran out of the cell and screamed crazily. The prison guards all chased after him. Seeing this, everyone was scared out of their wits and no one dared to take a step forward. At this moment, a black shadow flew into the cell from behind them. It was silent and no one noticed. At this moment, Mu Ling, in the cell had just regained her senses and was searching for her medicine bottle. The man in black was already standing at the door, but she didn't even notice. The man in black waited for a long time and finally became impatient. He asked in a strange tone, "Girl, why aren't you running away?" Chapter 525. Hearing this strange voice, Mu Ling's heart skipped a beat. She stared blankly at the floor, not daring to raise her head. Just now, did someone really speak? Or was it just her imagination? She seemed to have thought of something as her heart pounded wildly. She felt as if the entire world had fallen silent and she could clearly hear her own heartbeat. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. Mu Ling immediately raised her head to look, only to see that the cell door was empty. However, it didn't take long for several prison guards to arrive. Her originally bright and spirited eyes instantly became empty. No matter how the prison guards talked, pointed, closed the door, or locked the cell, she didn't even spare them a glance. She didn't even bother to look for the medicine bottle. She was like a deflated doll as she sat on the floor dejectedly with her arms wrapped around her knees. She was completely powerless. She knew that she had misheard. It was a complete auditory hallucination. "Little girl, if you didn't escape earlier, you won't be able to escape now." A low and deep voice suddenly appeared, and it was very clear, coming from the right side of her. This, Mu Ling jerked her head around. At first, she didn't see anything, but when she took a closer look, she saw a black figure standing against the wall, blending in with the darkness. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. "Chi brother." She almost shouted "Chi" out loud. Fortunately, she managed to stop herself in time. However, she couldn't hold back her tears and they gushed out of her eyes, falling one by one. "Chi brother, Ling, Mrs. Yu." Gu was dressed in a black robe, clearly Gu Qishao's disguise. Han Yunqing had told him to come as Gu Qishao, but he'd never do that. Although Mu Ling was a little silly, she wasn't stupid. What if she became suspicious? In the past, if she became suspicious, he would let her do as she pleased. However, things were different now. This girl was going to work in Pill Fiend Pharmacy in the future. If she found out that Gu Qisha was Gu Qisha, wouldn't she annoy him to death? Fortunately, Xie Dei was busy on the road and did not find trouble with Mu Linger, so he did not have to show up as Gu. Mu Ling stood rooted to the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks. Gu Qisha couldn't be bothered to care about her. He walked around in a circle and found the small white porcelain bottle. "Little girl, catch." Mu Ling hastily accepted it, and she smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Your Excellency Pill Fiend." Her eyes were blurred with tears, but she was smiling brightly. The light from the skylight coincidentally shone on her face, illuminating both her tears and her smile. Unfortunately, Gu turned a blind eye to this beauty. He leaned against the wall and lazily sat down. "Girl, Why do you fill that bottle with medicine every day? Mu Linger was shocked. How did you know? Sure. Gu Qi Sha was displeased. Mu Linger covered her mouth and waited for a while. When she saw that there was no movement outside, she sat down next to Gu Qi Sha and leaned against the wall like he did. She whispered, Your Excellency Pill Fiend, how did you know? I've been guarding the skylight every day. How else could I have arrived at such a coincidence? Do you think you're lucky? Gu Qi Sha asked in annoyance. Mu Linger secretly laughed at herself for being so stupid. Why didn't she notice that Pill Fiend and Chi Brother were so similar? However, she had never really interacted with Pill Fiend before. How could someone as smart as Han Yunqing not have noticed? She thought to herself, it's not that I'm stupid like Han Yunqing, it's that Chi Brother is so smart that he hid it well. If Han Yunqing, who had just made a vow, knew about this, she would probably laugh until her stomach hurt. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, are you here to save me? Mu Linger was very happy. You didn't run when you could have just now. Why should I save you? Gu Qi Sha snorted. Where can I go if I run? Hide for the rest of my life. I won't die anyway. That means there's still hope, right? Mu Linger said seriously. She had no idea that two major powers in Medicine City were eyeing her marriage. Prison couldn't trap her for the rest of her life, but her marriage could. Those people couldn't kill her, but they could make her life a living hell. Won't die. Gu Qi Sha muttered to himself, then suddenly laughed. Won't die because there's still hope. Ha! For some reason, Mu Linger felt despair from Gu Qi Sha's strange laughter. She didn't like this feeling. Your Excellency Pill Fiend, why did worms suddenly appear on that person's body? Did you use poison? She changed the topic. Han Yunqing gave it to me. It's called roundworm poison. Just a little bit will cause a swarm of worms to quickly grow in the body. Don't worry, in less than 2 hours, that person's internal organs will be completely devoured by the worms. As soon as Gu arrived in Medicine City, he received a message from Han Yunqing via messenger pigeon. She told him to use it to save Mu Linger. The way he used the poison wouldn't reveal his presence. Instead, people would suspect that Mu Linger was proficient in the art of poison and wouldn't dare to approach her. Han Yunqing is so scary. Mu Linger gave an objective evaluation. Gu laughed. So don't provoke her. Otherwise, you won't even know how you're going to die. Mu Linger couldn't help but tremble. Gu was secretly delighted. Mu Linger had a criminal record, so it was a good thing that she was afraid of Han Yunqing. There was no way he was going to tell Mu Linger that the roundworm poison was the most famous poison of the 100 Poisons sect, not Han Yunqing's. Of course, Han Yunqing's poison was also powerful, but her ability to use it was terrible. If it was her who used the poison today, Mu Linger would have been bullied several times before she could succeed. Mu Linger felt a little guilty and avoided the topic. Seeing Mu Linger tightly clutching the medicine bottle, Gu asked curiously, Girl, what is this medicine for? Even if you're making medicine, you shouldn't mix it like this, right? He had been watching and guessing for several days, wondering if this little genius Mu Linger had discovered some new way to make medicine. Every day at dawn, she would put in a pill on purpose. He analyzed the time, temperature, humidity, strength used to hold the pill, and the material of the porcelain bottle. However, he still couldn't figure out why. He even observed Mu Linger put the pill into the porcelain bottle and shook it a few times. Unfortunately, there was no pattern to it. Mu Linger suddenly didn't know how to answer. Let me smell it, Gu said seriously. Mu Linger looked at his puzzled eyes and wanted to laugh, but she also felt a little uncomfortable. Chi brother, Linger isn't making medicine. Linger is counting the days. Mu Linger kept looking at Gu and didn't answer for a long time. Gu was a medicine fanatic, so how could he let her go so easily? He leaned closer and smiled slyly. It's a new formula, right? How about we make a deal? Mu Linger smiled bitterly. Lord Pill Fiend, I've been locked in here for so long that I don't know anything. I rely on this thing to keep track of the days. Every day when the sun shines in, I put in a pill. Before Mu Linger could finish speaking, Gu Qi Sha lost all interest and mocked himself, I'm overthinking it. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes to rest. Mu Linger looked at him and couldn't help but mutter, Lord Pill Fiend, do you know why I keep track of the days? Gu Qi Sha didn't answer and seemed to have fallen asleep. Mu Linger was too used to this attitude of his. In the past, he would always close his eyes and sleep when she would talk to him non-stop. In reality, he couldn't fall asleep. I keep track of the days when I can go to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. I go once every 3 months, so there are still 77 days left before I can go, Mu Linger said with a smile. Gu suddenly opened his eyes and asked suspiciously, do you really want to go to Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Didn't this girl have no choice but to work for Pill Fiend Pharmacy because she lost to him? That's strange. No, I want to see my Qi brother. Pill Fiend Pharmacy belongs to Han Yunqing, so my Qi brother will definitely go, Mu Linger said seriously. Gu Qi Shao immediately avoided her eyes, his heart breaking. What the hell? Unexpectedly, Mu Linger said, Lord Pill Fiend, did you know that I like Qi brother? Looking at Mu Linger's large, clear eyes, Gu's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He felt as if something had pricked the softest part of his heart, making him feel very uncomfortable. However, this only lasted for a moment. He immediately laughed out loud and laughed for a long time before he glanced at Mu Linger and pretended to be clever. Don't tell this daddy about love, whispering sweet nothings to each other, hovering between life and death. This daddy is old and can't take it anymore. Mu Linger gritted her teeth and only replied with an, oh, after a long while. Just like that, the two of them fell into silence. However, Gu quickly left and hid himself in the darkest corner of the cell to sleep. He instructed Mu Linger, remember to leave some food for this daddy when you bring it over. Before he could find a chance to leave, he would probably have to stay with this girl. Mu Linger could still laugh. Lord Pill Fiend, you're old and can't starve. I'll leave all of it for you. There were many ways to like someone. Some people demanded absolute fairness. If I like you, you must like me. If I treat you well, you must treat me well. Some people blindly demanded. No matter how I treat you, you must treat me well. And some people were willing to like you one-sidedly. As long as I treat you well, it's sunny day. Qi brother, you're Linger sunny day. Mu Linger suddenly didn't want to leave. She hoped to be locked up in this cell for the rest of her life. Of course, this was impossible. The burly man sent by the Lin family had his entire stomach hollowed out by a poisonous roundworm. His death was gruesome. This matter was naturally concealed by the prison guards. They didn't spread it and reported it to Head Elder Xie. Head Elder Xie, the Xie family head, and the Lin family head arrived at the scene at the same time. When they saw the poisonous roundworm on the burly man's corpse, Head Elder Xie was shocked. It's from the 100 Poisons sect. Although these people didn't understand poisons, they still recognized the most famous poisons of the 100 Poisons sect. The Lin family members were scared silly and blurted out, Mu Linger is involved with the 100 Poisons sect? Head Elder Xie and the Xie family head looked at each other. After comforting the Lin family members, they ordered the prison guards to not spread the news and to immediately dispose of the corpse. Father, Muing Dong's move is too ruthless. From the looks of it, Mu Linger and Jun Xie have been in cahoots for a long time. Mu Linger's provocation of Gu Qi Sha was a trap. They deliberately lured you over. The Xie family head said in shock. They originally thought that Mu Linger was only in cahoots with Jun Xie. They didn't expect that even Mu Linger's provocation of Pill Fiend Pharmacy was a trap. Muing Dong. Do you think that old man is so easy to fool? Head Elder Xia was thoroughly enraged. He originally wanted to wait for an opportunity to make a move, but in his anger, he decided to take the initiative to counterattack. The next day, for some unknown reason, he actually took the initiative to invite Jun Xie. Chapter 526. Jun Xie had just returned from the empty poison pond when he received Head Elder Xie's invitation. He immediately rushed to the Xia clan's estate outside the city. A servant led him into the guest hall, where Head Elder Xie had been waiting for a long time. Unlike Ouyang Ningrua's slow and modest approach, Jun Xie cut straight to the chase. Head Elder Xie, have you finally made up your mind? Head Elder Xie also nodded straightforwardly. This old man can agree to your request. However, you must give old man an idea as to what to do. What to do? To put it bluntly, it was about how to pressure Mu Ling, into marrying Northern Li's crown prince. Jun Xie simply said, make up for your mistakes. Head Elder Xie's eyes flashed with ridicule. What do you mean? During the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, this prince will represent Northern Li in proposing marriage to the Mu clan. The betrothal gift will be an admission token to the Celestial Peak Snow Mountain, one of Northern Li's 5 snowy mountains. Head Elder Xie, you can use this opportunity to pressure Mu Ling, to make up for her mistakes by marrying her off to Northern Li. As for the betrothal gift, it will naturally be accepted by the Council of Elders. The admission token to the Celestial Peak Snow Mountain will be jointly owned by Medicine City and managed by the Council of Elders, Jun Xie explained. Head Elder Xie sneered. Ha, the Xia clan was the one who got it, so why does it belong to the Council of Elders? The Tianxian Snow Mountain to the left of the Celestial Peak Snow Mountain will be used as a gift to thank Elder Xie. Jun Xie was in a good mood and chuckled. Head Elder Xie, this way you'll gain both fame and fortune. Head Elder Xie's arrangements for Mu Ling's marriage reflected his selflessness. He didn't make things difficult for Mu Ling, because of the infighting between the Xia and Mu clans. On the contrary, he was working for the benefit of all of Medicine City. This was fame. As for Jun Xie's additional benefits for the Xia clan, this was profit. President Xia stroked his beard and appeared to be deep in thought. In fact, he was secretly admiring Jun Xie for making such a good move. If it weren't for his grandson's words and the poison of the roundworm, he would have fallen into Jun Xie and Muingdong's trap. Guild Master Xia pretended to be deep in thought for a long time before he spoke. Your Highness Majesty Kang's plan is brilliant, but... what is it? Just say it. Jun Xie said generously. It's just that Muingdong is deceitful and unpredictable. I don't have full confidence that he'll agree. This matter. Old man would rather not do it. President Xie's attitude was very firm. The always confident Jun Xie finally frowned and bluntly asked, Xie Dei, isn't pressuring Muingdong in public enough for the sake of the entire Medicine City? Where is your dignity as the president of the Elder Council? Guild Master Xia knew what was going on and wasn't provoked. His attitude became even more firm. Old man doesn't want to be bitten by Muingdong at the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. In short, this old man won't do it without full confidence. As he spoke, he stroked his beard and muttered to himself, without Mu Ling, the Mu clan won't be able to go far. My Xia clan has plenty of time to wait. A trace of impatience flashed through Jun Xie's eyes, but he still suppressed it and asked, what is considered full confidence? Difficult. President Xie sighed. That scoundrel Muingdong is the most cunning person in Medicine City. Your Highness Kong Majesty, as for Mu Ling's marriage. In old man's opinion, it's best to forget about it. Aside from the marriage, everything else. Hee, we can discuss it. Jun Xie snorted coldly in his heart. If it weren't for Mu Ling, How could he have set his eyes on the Xia clan? With Xia Dei's cowardly behavior, it was no wonder that he couldn't expand the Xia clan. Although Mu Yingdong was a bit cunning, he still liked his boldness. Juni Xia pondered for a moment, then said coldly, since President Xia wants full confidence, then we can only let the Mu clan benefit. Xia Dei snickered. How? The profound Sky Snow Mountain's gift of thanks will be shared between the Mu clan and the Xia clan. You and Mu Yingdong will each take a step back, Juni Xia said. That doesn't make sense. Xia Dei immediately refused. Juni Xia disdainfully mocked, Guildmaster Xia, there aren't so many advantages in this world. Since you don't want to take the risk or give up the benefits, then this matter is over. As for the rest, this prince has nothing to discuss with your Xia clan. Xia Dei was already overjoyed, but he pretended to be angry. Your Highness Duke of Kong, what kind of attitude is this? Juni Xia couldn't be bothered to explain and got up to leave. Guildmaster Xia hurriedly stopped him. Your Highness Duke of Kong, old man will agree. However, old man doesn't want to discuss this matter with Mu Yingdong face to face. Juni Xia was waiting for him to give in. He sneered, this prince will go and discuss it. Mu Yingdong hurriedly added, Your Highness Duke of Kong, after the discussion, it needs to be written in black and white and stamped with the Mu clan seal. Only then will old man feel at ease. Juni Xia really did agree. When he told Mu Yingdong about this matter, Mu Yingdong couldn't stop laughing. Just give it to him in black and white. This time, old man will make him fail miserably. Once Mu Ling successfully married into Northernly, the Mu clan would naturally have a way to force the Xia clan to give up the entire snowy mountain. The day before the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, Mu Yingdong handed over an agreement to Juni Xia. Juni Xia handed it over to Guildmaster Xia on the very same day. Guildmaster Xia happily accepted it, but he sneered in his heart. This was a heavy piece of evidence. He was very much looking forward to the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Juni Xia and Mu Yingdong didn't know that Ouyang Ningrua was up to no good, nor did they know that Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi had already set a trap for the Xia clan. Mu Yingdong was still pondering whether Han Yunqing and Gu Qisha would play any tricks during the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Meanwhile, Juni Xia was busy preparing the marriage proposal ceremony. He was waiting for all the medical experts to gather the next day to publicly announce the marriage proposal. They were also very much looking forward to the show that would unfold at the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. Tomorrow was the day of the Grand Medicine Testing Convention, so Medicine City was especially lively today. People from Medical City, the imperial physicians of each nation, and the famous medicine halls were all present. Those who were invited were naturally received by the Council of Elders. For example, the big shots from Medical City and the biggest medicine merchant, Ouyang Ningrua, were all personally received by the Council of Elders. They were staying in the Council of Elders guest rooms, which were the closest to the medicine forest. As for the others, the more famous ones were all taken away by the three clan heads. Even the less famous ones were warmly received by a few smaller clans who were willing to rope them in. As for Han Yunqing and the others, when Han Yunqing entered Medicine City with a black-clothed, masked guard, the news immediately spread throughout the city. Everyone knew that Pill Fiend Pharmacy's Qin Wangfei had arrived, but unfortunately, no one was there to receive her. The Wang clan naturally wanted to avoid suspicion, so the Council of Elders and the other clans. Ha! At this time, the bright moon hung high in the sky. Han Yunqing held the reins of her horse as she walked down the busiest street in Medicine City. The black-clothed guard followed behind her, keeping a distance of only 3 or 4 steps. He carried a long sword on his back and had his arms crossed in front of his chest. His tall and handsome figure walked behind the petite Han Yunqing like a towering mountain. No one dared to covet Han Yunqing in the slightest. As soon as Han Yunqing walked over, the people on the street all retreated. Some of them knew of Han Yunqing's identity, while others were intimidated by the guard's aura. Many people were amazed. Qin Wangfei really was different. Even her guard was so domineering. In short, Han Yunqing easily passed through the crowd and arrived at Medicine City's most luxurious inn. When she arrived, the innkeeper personally came out to greet her. "Esteemed Wangfei, would you like a meal or a room?" Han Yunqing replied, "Give me a quiet and clean room. Send 4 dishes and a soup to my room." The innkeeper nodded repeatedly and was about to ask the masked guard behind her when the guard's eyes were cold. He ignored the innkeeper and followed Han Yunqing upstairs. The innkeeper was puzzled. Wasn't the guard going to stay? Generally speaking, the servant girls would enter the room to serve. If one brought a guard, the guard would stay in the room next to their masters and be on standby at any time. The innkeeper pondered for a while and finally decided that Qin Wangfei's guard was going to stand guard at the door. After the 4 dishes and soup were sent in, the masked guard closed the door and took off his mask. Who else could this most domineering guard in history be but His Highness Duke of Qin? Han Yunqing was starving. Just as she was about to eat, Long Fei Yi personally served her a small bowl of steaming hot soup. "Drink first." The weather was cold, her heart was warm, and her mood was good. If she hadn't personally experienced it, Han Yunqing would never have believed that the cold and aloof His Highness Duke of Qin could have such a caring side. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqing wanted to say something, but hesitated. "What is it?" Long Fei Yi asked indifferently as he filled the bowl with soup. "You're quite considerate." Han Yunqing smiled. Long Fei Yi took a sip of the soup and coughed a few times before swallowing it down. He didn't answer her and pretended as if nothing had happened. He lowered his eyes and continued to drink. However, when he realized that Han Yunqing was still looking at him, he seemed to feel uncomfortable and said indifferently, "Drink the soup." Amen. Han Yunqing tried not to laugh, but she couldn't hold it in. She only took a sip before she choked and started coughing violently. Long Fei Yi hurried over and patted her back. Unfortunately, Han Yunqing choked too badly and the soup blocked her respiratory tract. She couldn't breathe and couldn't catch her breath. She wanted to cough harder, but unfortunately, it was difficult to breathe. She tried a few times but couldn't. Panicking, Long Fei quickly picked her up and had her sit on his lap. Then he leaned her body forward and patted her hard on the back. Han Yunqing coughed as she waved her hand. She choked, so patting her back was useless. Long Fei Yi didn't know much. He was just anxious at first, but now he was panicking. He kept asking, "Are you better? Are you better?" Han Yunqing couldn't answer. She coughed hard and waved her hand vigorously. Her face was red from congestion. Long Fei Yi was even more flustered. He had ways to deal with even the most important things, but he was helpless when it came to such a small matter. "Find a doctor." He carried Han Yunqing out the door. Han Yunqing was about to lose to this guy. She decisively grabbed Long Fei Yi's hand and pressed it against her chest. As soon as he touched her soft spot, Long Fei gave a start. Han Yunqing leaned forward with the help of his hand. When she leaned forward, Long Fei Yi's hand felt even more obvious. This was first aid. It was the most standard first aid treatment for choking. Han Yunqing didn't notice so much. She patted her back with all her might to signal Long Fei Yi to pat her back. However, Long Fei Yi didn't respond. Although he had bullied this woman before, he had never done it like this. Long Fei Yi was stunned. Han Yunqing couldn't wait. She could only lean forward and cough hard. Fortunately, she coughed out the soup after a while. She exhaled deeply and her breathing returned to normal. Chapter 527. Once her breathing became smooth, Han Yunqing finally felt better. She hurriedly got up and adjusted her breathing. Long Fei Yi only regained his senses when his hand missed. He ignored the reaction of his lower body and asked with concern, "Did you cough it all out?" Han Yunqing nodded as she adjusted her breathing. She was completely unaware that she had just been taken advantage of. First aid was too normal for her. Moreover, it happened to her in an emergency situation. How could she be aware of so much? After confirming that she was really fine, Long Fei Yi secretly exhaled, but his gaze unconsciously drifted to Han Yunqing's body. The scene at Jiangnan's Plum Sea hot spring unconsciously surfaced in his mind. His breathing became heavier. He had always known that although this woman looked petite, she was actually graceful and exquisite. Her curves were exquisite and beautiful. Han Yunqing was completely unaware of all of this. She drank a few mouthfuls of water to moisten her throat and said very seriously, "Long Fei Yi, let me teach you a first aid method." She stood behind Long Fei Yi and wanted to demonstrate, but then she realized that Long Fei Yi was too tall for her to reach. She could only choose another first aid method. She wrapped her arms around Long Fei Yi's abdomen from behind and let Long Fei Yi lean forward. She placed one fist between Long Fei Yi's navel and the lower part of his sternum, then used the other hand to grab onto the fist and quickly thrust it inward and upward. This is the first aid method when you're choking. What I just asked you to do is another method. I'll demonstrate it again. This was probably called teaching by example. Han Yunqing's expression was serious as she pulled Long Fei Yi's large hand to her chest and leaned her body. Place the heel of your other hand between my shoulder blades. Long Fei Yi did as he was told. Han Yunqing was very satisfied. Yes, right here. Then use all your strength to slap it. If you can't relieve it after 5 or 6 slaps, change to another method. Just as she was about to get up, Long Fei Yi asked, "Was the method Zhao Mama taught this prince wrong?" At this time, Han Yunqing remembered that she had choked on the lotus seed soup a long time ago. Granny Zhao had taught this guy how to clean her chest. At that time, she had been taken advantage of, so she didn't dare to make a sound. Suddenly, Han Yunqing seemed to have thought of something and looked down. Unfortunately, it was too late. Long Fei Yi's other hand circled around her from behind and placed on her chest, gently rubbing and pressing. Although he was nervous about the lotus seed soup, he knew Granny Zhao's intentions. But he didn't expect that this woman would teach him this time. "Han Yunqing, have you taught anyone else?" He lowered his head and his breathing became heavy. His hot breath and hoarse voice tickled her ears. Han Yunqing shivered and realized that she had invited a wolf into the house. However, she couldn't ignore his restless hands and her body trembled slightly. "Have you?" Long Fei Yi was serious. When it came to certain things, he was petty to the extreme. No, Han Yunqing replied honestly. Long Fei Yi didn't ask any more questions, but gently caressed her ear. His hands grew restless, as if he couldn't help but dote on her, or punish her on purpose. Waves of numbness made Han Yunqing tremble uncontrollably. She wanted to refuse, but she couldn't control herself. "Yunxi," he called out softly as he held her tighter. She was entranced by his words, realizing for the first time that she was so close to this man. His delirious voice stimulated all of her senses, causing the last bit of restraint in her heart to crumble. She allowed him to caress her ear all the way down. "Long Fei Yi, we've finished the 100 steps together, right?" 100 steps. Long Fei Yi didn't know what that meant. Right now, his heart and mind were in a mess. His strong self-control had collapsed and all his misgivings were thrown to the back of his mind. He picked up Han Yunqing by the waist and strode towards the bed. But it was at this moment that someone knocked on the door. The rhythm of the knocking was very strong, clearly a secret signal. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing didn't notice because they were focused on each other. But the person outside the door kept knocking as if in a hurry. Finally, the sound pulled Long Fei Yi back from his delirious state of mind. He abruptly let go of Han Yunqing, his large movement startling Han Yunqing awake. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking didn't stop, but the two of them looked at each other in shock. He was shocked. He was shocked that he had lost control so easily this time and almost ruined things. She was shocked by his reaction. She was frightened by him. She pulled the silk blanket over her body and looked at him with furrowed brows. She was a little shy, a little angry, a little annoyed, and also a little reproachful. In short, her pink little face was like a color palette. This complicated expression made the nervous Long Fei Yi suddenly relax. He felt helpless, but he also wanted to laugh. He approached her and asked naughtily in her ear, "Don't you want to stop?" Han Yunqing was so embarrassed that she punched him on the shoulder and pushed him away. Naughty. Long Fei Yi loved her embarrassed and angry look, but he still took advantage of the situation to retreat and open the door. If he didn't open it now, the door would probably be knocked open. Seeing Long Fei Yi disappear behind the screen, Han Yunqing's heart couldn't help but feel a little empty. But as she thought about it, she suddenly laughed secretly. Knocking on their door at this time meant that it was either someone sent by the Wang clan or Gu Qisha. It must be something important. Tomorrow was the Grand Medicine Testing Convention. They had planted so many clues, but when it came to the most crucial moment, they were actually in an inn in Medicine City. Was she the bad one, or was Long Fei Yi the bad one? Long Fei Yi stood at the door for a long time without coming in. Han Yunqing waited in silence. She inadvertently glanced at the chastity mark on her arm. Han Yunqing was still a little nervous. She knew in her heart that this mark would disappear very soon. This mark had shocked many people on Fishery Island. She didn't mind being ridiculed or anything. She knew the situation between her and Long Fei Yi best. She liked the way she was now. She wasn't as careful in front of this man as before and could do as she pleased. Some things were consensual and didn't need to be forced. If he was naughty, then, let him be. Long Fei Yi, liking you is something to be proud of. I'm so glad that I didn't hide it and didn't miss it. Long Fei Yi stood at the door for a long time. By the time he came in, Han Yunqing was already dressed. From behind the screen, she could vaguely hear that it was about Ouyang Ningnoa. Someone from the Wang clan? She asked seriously. Yes, Ouyang Ningnoa checked into the Council of Elders yesterday. He had a secret meeting with head elder Xia last night, Long Fei Yi replied. Han Yunqing snorted. This guy is much more difficult to deal with than Jun Yixie. Long Fei Yi's smile was even colder than Han Yunqing's. No matter how difficult he is, we still have to settle the score with him. Last time, Long Fei Yi hadn't tricked Ouyang Ningnoa for no reason. It was Ouyang Ningnoa's fault. He was clearly half a master of Sky Domain black market, but he didn't tell anyone about it. He wanted to use Long Fei Yi to deal with Beigong Hizhe. How could it be so easy to take advantage of Long Fei Yi? This time, Ouyang Ningnoa seemed to have come to make a deal with Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but he was actually just here to deliver a message. He wanted to use them to deal with the Mu and Xia clans while he reaped the benefits. This time, Long Fei Yi was determined to make a thorough counterattack. Let's see if he dared to do it again. Rest early. I have to make a trip to the Wang clan. I won't be back so soon, Long Fei Yi said seriously. Han Yunqing nodded obediently. Her cheeks were still pink, but it was as if she hadn't lost control of herself earlier. Was she really going to pretend that nothing had happened? Long Fei Yi seemed a little surprised, but he didn't say anything else and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqing suddenly grabbed his sleeve. Long Fei Yi, this time, Long Fei Yi's lips curved into a faint smile. He seemed to be very happy that she wanted him to stay. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqing said, "You haven't eaten yet. Eat before you leave." Long Fei Yi stared blankly for a moment, then chuckled. "All right, I'll eat with you before I leave." What are you laughing at? Han Yunqing asked faintly. Nothing. Let's eat, Long Fei Yi said calmly. It seemed normal, and they didn't mention what had just happened. However, the two of them had a tacit understanding. Seeing that the food had gone cold, Long Fei Yi had the waiter change the table to a steaming hot one. Then he personally scooped out a bowl of soup for Han Yunqing. Drink slowly. Long Fei Yi had already finished speaking, but added, don't choke again. Fortunately, Han Yunqing hadn't drunk yet, or else she really would have choked again. Oh, she said, then silently ate. Long Fei ate quickly and didn't like to talk, so the two of them ate quietly as usual. But after a while, neither of them was willing to finish their meal first. Thus, the entire table was emptied. Be good and stay here. Chu Shifeng and Tang Li are both nearby, so don't worry, Long Fei Yi murmured. Han Yunqing was very cooperative. If he'd known earlier, he would have secretly paid a visit to the Wang estate after reaching Medicine City. Plenty of people were keeping an eye on her, so she'd arouse suspicion as soon as she left. Instead, it was the decisive and direct Long Fei Yi who turned back for a second after leaving the inn. He muttered, Yunshi, once we take Medicine City, I'll take you to Celestial Mountain. He hadn't planned to return to Celestial Mountain so soon, but now he wanted to get there as soon as possible so he could settle all his grudges. After confirming that Long Fei Yi had left, Tang Li and Chu Shifeng emerged from the walls of the inn. Your master is dawdling more and more, Tang Li said objectively. No, he wouldn't dawdle if esteemed Wang Fei wasn't by his side, Chu Shifeng was even more objective. The two of them looked towards the rooms upstairs at the same time. Chu Shifeng smiled and said, young clan head Tang, you were right to run away from the marriage. Women can't be provoked. Tang Li chuckled. Your mistress is the only one I can't provoke. The rest are fine. Apparently his fiancée's forces had been searching for him all over the world, but they hadn't found him yet. That meant they weren't very capable. Currently, Han Yunqing was smiling foolishly at the messy bedsheets in her room. It was unclear what she was thinking, but her smile was both silly and sweet. It was completely unlike her usual self. After washing up, she curled up in bed and let her mind wander into the detoxification dimension. It was the end of autumn and the beginning of winter, so the nights in Medicine City were especially chilly. She lay in the innermost corner of the room, leaving a spot for Long Fei Yi. She was so tired that she was about to fall asleep in the detoxification dimension when her eyes suddenly widened. Where's that fellow, Gu? A few days ago, she'd received news from Gu that he'd used up his poison roundworm and had already snuck into Muling, her side. He was going to meet up with them tonight. It was already the middle of the night, but he still hadn't shown up. What was going on? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.